A week later, on October 5th, the house was basically done. 3 stories tall. The third floor was a pavilion-style rooftop with a view. The vegetable garden out back was growing beautifully. Everything was brick now. The main house, the kitchen, even old Lee's little room. All that was left was interior furnishing, which I'd hire a carpenter for. I told the Black Horse brothers to come back tomorrow for a big celebration dinner, and then again after the decorating is finished. My broken-down straw hut was now a real 3-story brick house. Half my goals were already complete. I also built 3 extra small brick rooms next to old Lee's place for future guests. When the Black Horse brothers saw the finished house, they joked they'd almost forgotten they were bandits. I told them tomorrow I'm throwing a big feast, 4 jugs of strong liquor each, and whatever they don't finish they can take home. The brick kiln was done too. The workers had already started making brick molds, and soon we'd be ready to fire and sell. That evening, I dragged my wife through the whole house, excitedly explaining my plans. The main bedroom faces east for morning sun, with a balcony. The backside overlooks the river with another balcony. I even left holes in the walls for plumbing, a bathroom with running water. My wife was actually impressed by that idea. Nobody in this era has thought of indoor plumbing. Of course, right now it was just bare brick walls and 2 beat-up wooden beds a meter apart. Then thunder hit and rain poured down. My wife smiled and said at least the roof doesn't leak anymore. That's progress. Next morning, De Huang licked me awake again. I brushed my teeth with a willow stick and ash, then practiced spear forms. My wife said my hips were open enough now, so I'd moved on from splits training to weapon practice. After breakfast, I took De Huang into the deep mountains to hunt for the feast. De Huang caught 5 or 6 rabbits while running around like crazy. A good hunter needs a good dog, I stand by that. We passed by the old bear cave. De Huang shot inside, and came back out covered in something black. I knelt down and rubbed the black stuff off his fur, rolled it between my fingers, and my eyes went wide. I made a quick torch and went inside. About 8 or 9 meters deep, just animal bones and a strong stink. I crouched down, touched the ground, then took my axe and chipped off a piece of the cave wall. I held the stone up to the firelight and stared at it. My breathing got heavy. This stone, I couldn't believe what I was looking at. It's coal. I couldn't believe it. That bear cave was sitting on top of an exposed coal deposit. In this world, everyone burns wood for fuel. Nobody knows coal can burn. This was a massive business opportunity. I ran the numbers in my head. A gene of firewood burns for maybe half an hour. Coal can burn for 5 hours or more, produces higher heat, and takes up less space. People in this world have never seen it, so I can set my own price. 5 won per gene to start, targeting wealthy families. That's reasonable. 5 won buys almost 200 gene of firewood, so it's still a premium product. I abandoned the hunting trip and sprinted home. Told my wife everything on the way. She looked at the coal curiously. She'd never seen a non-magical stone that could burn. But she's gotten used to me having weird ideas, so she didn't question it. When I got home, the Black Horse brothers were already there. Perfect timing. I sat them down, and Yu Mianhu immediately got excited, thinking I was finally joining their gang. I told them no. I'm just a village guy with no big ambitions. They looked disappointed. Then I put the coal on the table. Yu Mianhu picked it up and shrugged, just a black rock. So I demonstrated. I tossed it into a basin of burning wood, and within seconds it started glowing red. Even better, it was smokeless coal, the rarest and most valuable kind. I mentally raised my price. Lu Yunbao, the smart one, figured it out instantly. His breathing got fast. If there's a lot of this stuff, we're rich. I laid out my proposal. They provide the labor, I provide the mine location and handle sales, and we split profits 50-50. I chose them over the villagers for 3 reasons. First, coal dust is toxic. Warriors can filter it out, but regular people can't. Second, when word gets out, people will try to steal the mine. The villagers can't fight, but Yu Mianhu and his brothers are top-level warriors. Third, warriors are stronger and faster. They'll mine way more than villagers could. Plus, with my wife backing me, there's 0 chance they'd ever double-cross me. Yu Mianhu's face was red with excitement. He stared at me and said, "We'll do it." But the split can't be 50-50, Yu Mianhu surprised me. I was ready to negotiate, but he said they should only take 30% because I found the mine and they're just providing muscle. I checked with my wife. She said whatever I decide. So we shook on it, 70-30, my favor. We toasted with a bowl of wine, and I took them up to the bear cave to show them the plan. Yu Mianhu promised to station people there tonight to guard it. The area is on the edge of the deep mountains, so no serious threats for a group of warriors. On the way down, we caught 2 entire nests of wild boar. Back at the yard, we drank and ate like crazy. I got so drunk I couldn't tell which direction was which. The Black Horse brothers passed out scattered all over the yard. When their men came to pick them up, they were shocked. Their bosses had never gotten this wasted back at the hideout. My wife carried me inside to sleep it off. Then, while I was out cold, she did something incredible. She stood on the second-floor balcony and used her powers to transform the yard. She dug out a circular pond 3 meters deep, filled it with water, built a little brick wall around it, created a 2-meter rock fountain in the middle, and made lotus flowers bloom in the water. Grass sprouted across the whole yard. The place went from bare dirt to a real home. When I woke up that evening and saw the pond and rock garden, I was amazed. I told her she's incredible, the power of a chi-refining Tao master. She rolled her eyes and told me to go make dinner. Meanwhile, that awful Zhou Tsuhua had been trying to cause trouble at the brick kiln, but Dago and the village chief's son kept her in check. Now she was planning to go to town and report me to the Wang family, the big brick-selling clan, hoping they'd crush my business. Next morning, after spear practice, I loaded up the ox cart and headed to town with my wife. I had 2 goals: find a good carpenter for furniture and visit the Wang family to propose a partnership instead of competing. Why fight when you can make money together? That's how I think. Business is about brains, not brawling. Plus, I have red bricks too, which nobody in town sells. That's my edge. On the road, I spotted Zhou Tsuhua and her husband Li Dada walking ahead of us. She heard my ox cart, stopped, and had the nerve to scream at me to give them a ride. I told Zhou Tsuhua she's lucky I didn't bring Da Huang. He'd have bitten her. Then I smacked the bull's rear and we took off, leaving them eating our dust. She screamed behind us that she'd get the Wang family to destroy my kiln. At the Wang mansion, I was impressed. Selling bricks clearly pays well. I told the guards to bring 2 bricks to the master directly, 1 blue and 1 red. The red one would get his attention since nobody around here makes red bricks. Sure enough, Wang Rahai came out personally. He was about 50, well-dressed, sharp eyes, a real business fox. We sat down for tea and neither of us spoke first. I know this game from my old life. Whoever talks first loses leverage. We sat there sipping tea in silence for a full 30 minutes, refilling 3 or 4 times. My wife had no idea what was happening. Finally, I smiled and conceded. You win, Mr. Wang. He laughed and said if he'd come to me, he would have lost. Just like that, mutual respect was established. He guessed right away I wanted to sell bricks through his network. He said he didn't need my bricks since he has his own kilns, but he was interested in my red brick formula. So I offered it as a gift, no strings attached. That caught him off guard. He studied me carefully. I don't look or act like a typical villager. He responded generously. He offered me the entire brick market in all 4 towns of Qingyuan County. I thought for a second and said, "Congratulations, Mr. Wang." He asked why. I said, "You're expanding to the county level, aren't you?" He laughed out loud and offered me a management position on the spot. I turned him down, told him I'm just a simple village guy who wants to take care of his wife and his little patch of land. He looked disappointed but respected my choice. His family has been stuck at the town level for 100 years and needs to move up to the county market. So the deal was settled. I give him the red brick formula. He gives me the 4-town market. I added one more thing. I'd give him 20% of my brick profits. He appreciated that. In return, he had his manager compile a list of all the landlords and wealthy families across the 4 towns. That list is pure gold. Instant connections to every potential customer. That 20% I gave up? Not a loss at all. It bought me a network that would have taken years to build on my own. We signed the contract, and Wang Rahai told me he'd visit my village in 2 days to see the kiln. He's handing over his local brick operations as he moves up to the county level. He even said I might do better than him. I stayed humble, told him the 4 towns are more than enough for me, and I'd support him from behind if he ever needed it. He asked which village I'm from. I told him, Mountain Valley Village, right off the main road from town. No reason to hide it. I left the red brick recipe with him and took the customer list. He wanted us to stay for dinner, but I had more to do, so I promised to host him when he visits. What I didn't know was that Zhou Tsuehua and her husband showed up at Wang's mansion right after we left, trying to report me for competing with his brick business. The guards recognized they were from the same village as me and figured out what was going on. Just jealous villagers stirring trouble. They told Zhou Tsuehua to get lost and laughed about her after she left. In town, I bought my wife a huge bag of malt candy. She'd eaten through the last batch in 3 days. Pregnancy cravings, I guess. I also got sunflower seeds and other snacks, plus a candied hawthorn stick for her on the way. Then I went looking for a carpenter. But right outside the best woodworking shop in town, I saw 2 guys throw a young man onto the ground. A middle-aged man named Li Shan came out, smashed a wooden piece on the ground, and told the kid to scram. Turns out Li Shan was the kid's dead father's apprentice who'd stolen the whole workshop after his master died. Now he was beating the son and blacklisting him from getting any work in town. I couldn't stand watching that. I walked up and slapped Li Shan across the face so hard he spun around and fell over. 2 of his guys charged at me, but they were just regular strong men. I put them on the ground in 2 hits. The young carpenter thanked me. I pulled out the furniture designs I'd drawn up and handed them to him, asking if he could make them. Li Shan called for more men from inside. I beat them all, then beckoned Li Shan over asking if he wanted another slap. He screamed that he had powerful backers, then ran inside and slammed the door shut. The young carpenter looked at my drawings, frowned for a second, then said they were too easy. No challenge at all. He offered to design something even better for me. I was surprised when Sumu said my furniture designs were too easy. The kid's name means wood, fitting for a carpenter. I told him to come work for me. He hesitated because the guy who stole his dad's workshop has a powerful family backing him. I told him to stop worrying. If his skills are as good as he says, I'll help him get his workshop back. He grabbed his toolbox from inside, and that was that. I'd recruited myself a carpenter. Perfect timing, too. He has no family left in town, and I have spare rooms next to old Lee's place. He can measure everything on site and do the decorating right there. Double wages, of course. On the ride home, this kid turned out to be a total chatterbox and the world's best hype man. He called my wife beautiful. Then when I asked if I wasn't handsome, he immediately said I was magnificently handsome. Every single thing I said, he'd follow up with a compliment. Professional grade flattery. Yi is it true about double pay? Yi, is the house really that big? Yi, can I really get my workshop back? I answered, why would I lie? 3 times in a row before losing my patience. Then he said he needed to Xiao Jia, which sounds like young lady. I went off on him about wanting me to find him a girl, but he just meant he needed to pee. My wife laughed and pointed out that I'm just as chatty with her every day. I argued that my talking is about business strategy, totally different. When we arrived at the village, Sumu's jaw dropped seeing my 2-meter wooden walls and 3-story brick house. He thought the whole village looked like this until I smacked his head and pointed at the regular wooden huts down the road. Inside the yard, he was amazed. Green grass, a pond with lotus flowers and a rock fountain, meat hanging to dry, cow pens, brick guest rooms. Better than most places in town. I showed him his room and the woodpile. He said making a bed was nothing. He wanted to start measuring the house for renovations right away. Good attitude. Then I spotted Old Lee passed out in a wooden lounge chair with his wine, and Da Huang lying next to him with a bowl of wine too. I snatched the wine away. Bad enough the old man drinks all day, now he's getting my dog drunk too. Da Huang tried to get up and come lick me, but stumbled face first into the wine bowl, lapped up what was left, then sat up and started howling at the sky like a wolf. Sumu stared at Da Huang and asked, Yi, are you sure that's a dog and not a wolf? I told Sumu that Old Lee calling me, young master, was nothing. The old man just showed up on his own and I took him in. Then I showed Sumu around the 2nd floor, explaining my sliding door idea. His eyes lit up. He said I was wasting my talent not being a carpenter. I walked him through everything I wanted. White rosewood panels on the walls, red rosewood for the floors and furniture. He was on board with all of it. At lunch, Sumu was shocked by the table full of meat. After that, my wife went to rest. I headed up the mountain to chop trees, and Sumu started building himself a bed. Old Lee, of course, snuck his wine gourd out of the firewood pile, refilled it from my stash, and sat down to drink with Da Huang again. What I didn't know was that Zhou Tsuehua had gone to my brick kiln to stir up trouble. She told everyone that the Wang family was going to send people to smash my operation in the next couple days. She'd gone to Wang's mansion to report me, and now she was using that to scare my workers. It worked on a lot of them. They started panicking, wondering if they'd get hurt, wondering if I'd even pay them since they hadn't gotten wages yet. 15 out of 23 decided to quit on the spot. Only 8 stayed. Zhang Eru stepped up and told everyone my character speaks for itself. 21 a day is a deal you can't find anywhere, and he trusts I'll handle it. Ernyo backed him up right away. Dago and his 2 brothers jumped in too, saying anyone who wants to tear down my kiln has to go through them first. Zhou Tsuehua kept fanning the flames, mocking Dago for being loyal to me after they used to bully me. Ergo lost his temper and slapped her. That started a brawl, and the quitters got even more worked up, demanding I pay them for the days they'd already worked. None of this had reached me yet. I was up on the mountain chopping wood, completely unaware that Zhou Tsuehua's lies were tearing my workforce apart. While I was up the mountain chopping wood with some Black Horse guys, a mob of workers showed up at my house demanding their pay and quitting. My wife handled it from the 3rd floor pavilion. She'd already figured out what happened using her powers. She told them I wasn't home and to come back at evening, then shut the gate in their faces. Zhou Tsuehua tried to keep them riled up, claiming I was hiding inside to avoid paying. But Zhang Eru told her to shut it and went back to the kiln to keep working. The crowd eventually scattered. I came back at sunset carrying huge logs on my back, followed by a line of Black Horse guys hauling white and red wood. Got about 40 or 50 big logs in one afternoon. The coal mining was going well too. Over 100 gene already, and the deeper they dig, the bigger the deposit seems. I'm not rushing to sell the coal though. My plan is to target rich families first, then use social pressure. The So-and-so family has already switched to coal. Only wealthy households use it now. Once that catches on, I can name my price. My wife told me what happened with the workers. I pulled out the contracts and laughed. Zhou Tsuehua wants to play games. Fine. I'll let her think she's winning for a couple days. When Wang Ruhai visits, she'll find out who the real clown is. Meanwhile, this is a perfect chance to weed out the disloyal ones. I grabbed Sumu and headed to the village center. Zhang Eru gathered everyone. Nearly 100 households showed up. By now the rumors had gotten ridiculous. Wang was going to demolish my kiln and my house, have me arrested and thrown in jail, and I was never planning to pay anyone. I stood on a big rock in the middle of the crowd. People started shouting, I quit. Pay me. Give us our money. I just stared at them coldly and waited. The shouting died down on its own. Then I spoke. Go ahead, keep talking. You were so loud a second ago. Come on, I'm standing right here. Say it to my face. Dead silence. Some looked scared, some ashamed, some were just watching for entertainment. Nobody? Okay then. My turn. I held up 3 fingers and announced 3 things. First, Zhou Tsuehua is right. Wang is coming to the village. Anyone who wants to leave, stand on my left. 17 people walked over. That left me 6 loyal ones. Zhang Eru, Ernyo, and 4 others. Not bad. Second, the contracts clearly say the commitment is 1 year. Legally, I don't owe quitters anything. But since we're all from the same village, I'm giving each of them 1 whole tael of silver. That's way more than they earned in 3 days of work. Their eyes nearly popped out watching Su Mu hand out 17 taels of shiny silver. Some of my remaining 6 wavered, but none of them left. That made me proud. Third, and this is where it got fun, I announced I'm hiring again. No limit on numbers this time. And since I'm apparently going to war with the Wang family, I'm doubling the pay to 41 a day. People thought I was crazy to keep going, but some figured out the math. Worst case, they lose a few days of work. Best case, serious money. One young guy stepped up immediately. His mom tried to drag him back by the ear, but he shouted that farming earns nothing compared to this. After an hour of chaos, I signed up 30 new people. With the original 6 and Dago's 3, that's 39 workers total. More than before. Zhou Tsuehua watched from the side looking smug, convinced Wang would crush me any day now. She has no idea. On the walk home, Sumu asked why I wasn't scared. I just smiled and told him to wait and see. I also asked him to hand over the quitters' contracts. I'm keeping those for later. Back home, Sumu had outdone himself. In one afternoon, he'd built 2 beds, a small one for himself and a massive one for me, over 2 meters wide. Beautiful craftsmanship, rounded corners, carved patterns, a detachable headboard so it could fit through the door. When I suggested something might be off about it, he exploded defending his work, said if I found a single splinter, I could chop off his hand. Total professional pride. We carried the big bed upstairs and assembled it. Then Sumu grabbed the two old small beds and took them downstairs, leaving me and my wife alone in the room with one very large bed. I looked at the two sets of bedding sitting on this enormous bed. I rubbed my nose nervously and said, "Wife." I was about to say something to my wife about the bed situation when De Huang came bounding in, eyes lighting up at the big new bed. I grabbed him by the scruff before he could jump on it. "I haven't even slept in it yet." He whimpered and slunk back downstairs. I tried again. "Wife?" She cut me off and told me to go take a bath because I stank. My eyes lit up. That meant she was okay with sharing the bed. I grabbed my clothes and ran downstairs grinning like an idiot. Wife affection progress, plus 10%. Total, 50%. She lay on the bed nervous and overthinking. What if he rolls over? What if he tries to hug me? Meanwhile, I came back, blew out the lamp, and carefully climbed onto my side. Her voice came through the dark, a little shaky. "The middle is the line. Don't cross it." "No problem," I said way too fast. I lay there with my heart pounding. She smelled so nice up close. I had to yell at myself internally to stop thinking weird thoughts. She's pregnant. I forced myself to sleep. De Huang snuck upstairs later and slept under the bed. Smart enough not to try the mattress. Next morning, he licked me awake again. I've given up trying to beat him. He always wakes up earlier no matter what I do. I turned and saw my wife sleeping peacefully, face slightly flushed. I stared like an idiot for a while, then got up to wash and train. My spear skills are coming together. 9 moves, all mastered. Sumu clapped and called me amazing. Good kid. After breakfast, Yu Mianhu showed up in full battle gear. Black armor, sword on his back, his brother's arm too. I tensed up thinking someone was attacking the mine. But no, he needed a favor. Deep in the mountains, 20 miles in, there's a cold pool with a special lotus flower. Its seeds ripen today, and eating one could help him break through to the next warrior level. Problem is a powerful giant python guards the pool. He wanted my wife and me to come as backup. I went inside and told my wife. I said we shouldn't go. She's pregnant and fighting monsters is too dangerous. No amount of money or favors is worth risking her or the baby. She smiled and put her hand on mine. First time she's ever reached for my hand. She said a 9th level snake is nothing to a Dao master like her. 1 finger and it's done. She's only 1 month pregnant. She'll be fine. I thought about it seriously, then agreed. Yu Mianhu brought us a horse. That's when I realized 2 things. I don't know how to ride, and I'd have to share the horse with my wife. Would she even be okay with that? My wife saw me standing there awkwardly by the horse and just flew up onto it gracefully. Then she pulled me up behind her, her face slightly red, and said quietly, "Hold my waist." I nervously put my hands on her waist. She stiffened for a second, then calmly told the others to lead the way. Back home, Old Li kept De Huang from following us and poured the dog a bowl of wine instead. One of the chickens snuck over, took a sip, and dropped flat on the ground. Instant knockout. On the horse, sitting so close to my wife, smelling her hair, seeing the tiny hairs on her neck. Well, my body reacted. She noticed and told me through gritted teeth, "Control that thing or you'll lose it on this horse ride." I scooted back, mortified. I really can't help it. I'd been single my entire life until recently. 2 hours of riding through the mountains brought us to a cold pool, about 30 or 40 meters wide, with white mist rising off the water. In the center, a glowing ice blue lotus flower was blooming. Stunning. Yu Mianhu said we had to wait until nightfall for the lotus seeds to fully ripen. The giant python was at the bottom of the pool and would surface to eat the seeds. That's when we'd strike. My wife and I sat on a rock eating wild fruits and sunflower seeds while we waited. Yu Mianhu glanced at us and shook his head. We looked more like tourists than warriors about to fight a monster. Meanwhile at home, Zheng Qiaoqiao showed up again looking for me. Old Li told her I wasn't home, then shuffled back to his chair without caring. She left angry. The 2 chickens closed the gate after her. When night fell, my wife suddenly said, "It's coming." She handed me her jade spear and told me to try fighting it myself. Apparently, I'd reached the 3rd level of blood condensation. She'd protect me. Then it emerged. A head the size of a water barrel rose from the pool. My jaw dropped. The snake kept rising. Its body towered above the 40-meter trees. The thing had to be 100 meters long. It let out a roar that sent shockwaves through the air. I covered my ears, hands sweating. Its massive eyes locked onto us. Yu Mianhu yelled, "Go!" and charged with his sword. Lu Yunbao vanished into the trees with his daggers. He Mianxiong leaped into the air, swinging a giant spiked hammer, a blood-red bear phantom forming behind him as he brought it crashing down toward the python like a meteor. I charged in with my wife's jade spear. An ice spike shot at me, and I tried to deflect it, but the force was insane. I only cracked it halfway before getting blasted into the bushes. The gap between me and a 9th-level beast was just too huge. My 3-bull strength was like poking an elephant with a toothpick. I ran back in and stabbed the python's body with everything I had. Sparks flew, and nothing, not even a scratch. I couldn't even break its skin. I jogged back to my wife and handed the spear over, embarrassed. "Honey, I can't even dent this thing." She smiled and said, "Now you know the gap. Train harder." Then she flew into the sky and appeared right in front of the python's face. She just stood there in midair, staring at it. The python pulled its entire 100-meter body out of the pool and whipped its tail, sending all 3 brothers flying. I was terrified it would swallow her. 2 breaths later, the python lowered its head. Mist exploded everywhere. When it cleared, the snake was gone. My wife floated there alone holding the lotus pod. She tossed it to Yu Mianhu. 9 ice lotus seeds inside. He tried to give me 5, but I told him I'm not at 9th level yet, so they're useless to me. My wife casually said, "My husband doesn't need these. When he reaches 9th level, I'll find him something better." The 3 brothers just stared at each other. Their priceless treasure was apparently nothing special to her. Then I noticed something. I leaned in close. "Wife, what did you just call me?" She called me her husband, Xianggong, for the first time. She rolled her eyes, jumped on the horse, and said she was sleepy. I kept bugging her all the way home. "What did you call me?" She finally snapped. "I called you a pig. Go to sleep." I looked up at the moon and sighed. Long road ahead. What I didn't know was that she'd actually kept the python alive, shrunk it down to finger size, and dropped it in our pond as a future training partner for me. Late that night, De Huang, the 2 chickens, and the little snake had a meeting by the pond. From what I can piece together, De Huang declared himself the boss, assigned the snake the name, Hey Mei, Blackie, and the chickens enforced the pecking order by slapping the snake around when it tried to resist. The snake wanted to be called Xiao Qing, since she could eventually become a dragon, but De Huang said she's black, not green, so Blackie it is. Then the chickens started clucking loudly. I threw my wooden sandal at them from upstairs and yelled at them to shut up. They make all that noise but never lay any eggs. I threatened to cook them for my wife's pregnancy nutrition. The 2 chickens huddled in the cow shed, shaking. The chapter opens with the snake's inner thoughts. She got captured by my wife, dumped in our pond, and now gets bullied by De Huang, the 2 chickens, and even a tiny fairy named Yutiandao. She wanted to be called Xiao Qing, but De Huang named her Hey Mei, Blackie. Poor thing just wants to train and prove she's meant to be a green dragon, not a black snake. But I had no idea she even existed. Zhang Eru came to me worried. We'd burned tens of thousands of bricks, but hadn't sold a single one. I told him to relax and stack them around the village if the kiln runs out of space. Honestly, I was wondering where Wang Rahai was too. It had been almost a week. Sumu was killing it with the renovations. In 4 or 5 days, the first floor was basically done. Redwood floors, furniture, doors, and windows all installed. Just needed to finish the wall panels and do the second floor. 2 or 3 more days, and it'd be complete. Then I heard horses and carriages outside, 5 or 6 fancy ones. Wang Rahai had finally arrived. Zhang Eru spotted him first and thought this was the attack Zhou Tsuhua had warned about. The kid grabbed a stick and stood there shaking, ready to fight for me. Brave, but unnecessary. Wang Rahai walked right past him and called out, "Brother Yi, I've come to visit." I came out wiping sawdust off my hands and laughed. Told him I'd been waiting forever, sitting on 50 or 60,000 unsold bricks. He laughed and asked why I didn't just start selling. I said I wanted to check with him first. That's how you do business. Respect your partners. I invited him inside for tea, then told Eru to stop work at the kiln because Wang and I would be heading over to inspect it. Eru stood there stunned for a second, then it hit him. He tripped face first into the mud, jumped up, and started screaming at the top of his lungs. Wang isn't here to fight Yi Chun. The kiln isn't closing. Zhou Tsuehua was lying. He ran to the kiln and announced it to everyone. The workers' faces went from terrified to relieved in seconds. Dago grabbed a stick and charged off to go beat up Zhou Tsuohua's family. Wang and I walked over to the kiln together, chatting like old friends. When we arrived, Dago had Zhou Tsuohua by the hair, while she was still screaming that Wang was here to destroy my business. And there we were, walking up right behind her. I told everyone to stop fighting. Wang Rahai's servants grabbed Zhou Tsuohua, pinned her to the ground, and slapped her a few times before she could even start her act. Wang didn't spare her a glance. We toured the kiln together. He said the bricks looked good, but my workforce needed work. I agreed. Most of them are fine, just a few bad apples like Zhou Tsuohua. Then Wang stood in front of all the villagers and introduced himself as the big brick dealer from town. He announced that the entire brick business for the 4 towns now belongs to me. The workers were stunned. I could see the regret on the faces of everyone who'd quit. They were already planning to beg me for their jobs back. Zhou Tsuohua was left lying on the ground. Not a single person helped her up. When her husband finally came, she started screaming that this wasn't over. Dago shut her up real quick. At lunch, I cooked a full pork feast and got Wang so drunk he started insisting on finding me some concubines. That terrified me. I refused immediately. After he left, my wife came downstairs crunching sunflower seeds and casually asked why I didn't take Wang up on the concubine offer. I said firmly that she's all I need. She made a little humph sound and told me to have Sumu build a bathtub and heat water for her tonight. I gave Sumu 5 taels to buy himself some clothes. He refused, said I'd already overpaid him. I smacked him on the head and told him it's for clothes, not payment. After I left, Oldly smoothly took the silver from Sumu's confused hands and said he'd take him shopping tomorrow. Sumu just sat there mumbling, but isn't buying me clothes the same as giving me money? Oldly also quietly felt Sumu's bones and spine when the kid wasn't paying attention. I think the old man is considering taking him as a student. That evening, the bathtub was ready. I'd even built a working drainage system, cement and brick pipes through the wall, buried underground, draining outside. I heated the water, tested the temperature, and called my wife in. She checked everything, nodded approvingly, then told me to go to bed. I went to the bedroom like a good boy and closed the door. I was sound asleep when, apparently, Zhou Tsuohua and her husband snuck over to my yard in the middle of the night with torches, trying to burn down my wooden fence. What I found out later is that my animals handled it. The huang, the chickens, and the snake were all perched on top of the wall watching. The snake kept blowing cold air to put out the flames. Then she accidentally sprayed water all over both of them instead of the wall. The huang howled. The chickens went crazy, and those 2 ran screaming into the dark. But as they ran, they tripped at the village entrance, and their torches flew onto Old Brick's wooden roof. No rain for days, dry wood. The whole house went up in flames fast. The noise woke me up. I saw the fire from my balcony and jumped straight down, grabbed a bucket, and ran to help. Sumu came running too. De Huang, of course, was pretending to sleep under the bed like he'd never left the house. The chickens were hiding in the cow shed acting innocent. The snake was nervously swimming circles in the pond. First time in her 100-year life she'd been involved in anything like this. We couldn't put it out. The fire was spreading too fast. Then Old Brick's wife screamed that their 6 taels of savings were still in a cabinet inside. Old Brick dumped water on himself and charged into the burning house. 6 taels is almost 2 years of savings for them. His son tried to go in after him, but I grabbed him and shoved him back on his butt. I poured 2 buckets of water on myself and told him if I don't come out, going in would just mean 2 dead people instead of 1. I held my breath and ran in. The ceiling was filling with black smoke. I know from fire safety that stuff can explode into a fireball at any moment. I dumped water on the doorway, ripped down a smoldering curtain, and through stinging, red eyes found Old Brick pinned on the floor. A burning beam had fallen on his leg. He was still clutching a cloth bag with the silver in it. I cursed under my breath, risking your life for a few coins, and charged in with my half bucket of water. I dumped the water on Old Brick instead of the burning beam. Half a bucket wouldn't put that out anyway. I kicked the flaming wood off his leg with all my strength and grabbed him. Looking up, I saw the main beam about to collapse. I spotted a window, charged through it holding Old Brick, and crashed outside just as the whole house exploded behind us. The blast wave from the fire nearly knocked me flat, But all that hip-opening training actually saved me. I kept my balance and ran clear. The villagers crowded around. I laid Old Brick down and was about to do chest compressions when his wife shoved through and slapped him across the face. He woke up instantly, holding up the bag of silver and croaking money. Money. I couldn't believe it. Those coins really were his whole life. His leg was badly burned, though. After half an hour, we finally got the fire under control. Old Brick's son knelt in front of me crying, thanking me for saving his dad. I pulled him up and told him real men don't kneel. If he wants to thank me, just work hard at the kiln. Then someone noticed Jo Tsuewa's family was suspiciously absent. Villagers kicked down her gate. She came out pretending she'd been asleep the whole time, but her two front teeth were missing and her mouth was still bleeding. She claimed she'd cracked them chewing bones. Then a voice from the crowd tricked her, said there was ash on her legs. She immediately bent down to brush it off, proving she had a guilty conscience since there was nothing there. That voice turned out to be Old Lee, who slipped away grinning after stirring up trouble. The evidence was damning. Her missing teeth, her husband's scraped-up legs, no alibi. The village chief demanded a confession. The villagers weren't buying any of her excuses. I was too tired to care. I went home and washed off the soot. Climbing into bed, I whispered that my wife sleeps like a little pig through all that noise. She coughed. I broke into a cold sweat and lay there perfectly still, not daring to breathe. Next morning, I opened the door to find a crowd of villagers outside, all the ones who'd quit. Their spokesman stammered that they wanted their jobs back. I looked at them and said, "You think my kiln is a market? Come and go as you please," they begged. I told them to stop calling me Big Brother. They don't deserve to after what they pulled. I shut the gate on those quitters and told them I respect their choice. They chose to leave, so they're gone. No second chances. At breakfast, I asked my wife if there's a way to get stronger fast. I told her I'm a man. I should be protecting her, not the other way around. She smiled and said there is a way. Sleep more. Old Lee backed her up from the doorstep. I thought they were both messing with me. What kind of training is just sleeping? But my wife was serious about it. I said I'd try when I have time, but honestly, there's way too much going on right now to nap. I've got 3 major goals before the new year, which is about 3 months away. First, take over Wang's brick operations across the 4 towns. That means finding managers and getting everything running. Second, start selling the coal we've been stockpiling. Third, open a restaurant in town using my recipes from my old world. Food is always a profitable business. I've still got over 600 taels left from my original 900, but that's not enough for everything. Once the brick business starts generating income and I sell some coal, I can fund the restaurant. And by next year, when the baby comes in July, I want to have enough money to give my family the best life possible. I headed to the kiln to pick foreman. I had Su Mu carve 5 wooden badges as symbols of authority. People love status symbols, even small ones. I stood on a brick pile and announced the foreman positions pay 80 a day. Everyone's eyes lit up. I explained the rules. Foremen manage the workers and answer only to me. But there's a catch. Every foreman must meet monthly production quotas with quality bricks. And every 3 months, there's a competition. Whoever makes the best bricks fastest gets to be foreman. If a current foreman slacks off, someone replaces them. This keeps everyone motivated and improving. Give people a path upward, and they'll work their hearts out. Now, the 5 foremen are, I announced the 5 foremen. Ernyo was one of them, and so was Old Brick's son Zhou Dazhuang. Everyone expected Zhang Eru to be picked, but I left him out on purpose. Eru stood there looking crushed and angry. Ernyo even offered to give up his badge for Eru. I told Ernyo he's smarter than people think. His dad calls him dumb, but that's just because farming isn't his thing. I'm putting him in charge of the entire brick kiln operation. Then I pulled Eru aside and told him he's not cut out for the kiln. I have something better for him. He almost exploded, thinking I was firing him. I kicked him in the butt and told him to calm down. His dad told me Eru loves cooking, and I'm planning to open a restaurant in town. He'd be my head chef and manager. Once it clicked, his face went from furious to embarrassed to excited in about 3 seconds. I assigned the other 4 foremen to take over Wang's kills in the different towns. They'd go home once a week and get holidays off. They all agreed instantly. We loaded up 2 ox carts and headed to town, me and my wife on one, the 4 foremen on another, Sumu driving. Back at the house, the animals went wild the moment we left. De Huang led the chickens and the snake on a fishing trip outside the yard. Oldly didn't even look up. But then something happened that I had no idea about. Once the yard was empty, Oldly stood up from his chair. His hunched body suddenly transformed. He shot up to over 2 meters tall, muscles bulging everywhere. He pulled a huge crescent blade called Tiger's Roar from a box under his bed. It was a legendary weapon given to him by the Duanmu family head years ago. He performed a complete blade routine in the yard. Fierce, lethal, nothing like the feeble old man I know. When he finished, he muttered something about the third prince and the Duanmu family's blood debt. Then he shrank back into his usual shriveled old man shape, lay back down, and sipped his wine while humming an old family song. On the road, I tried to nap on the cart, saying I'd train by sleeping. My wife rolled her eyes and said it only works on our bed at home. I didn't understand why, but she wouldn't explain. When I closed my eyes anyway, she pinched my arm. I opened my eyes and mumbled that I won't sleep then. Sumu laughed at us, so I smacked the back of his head. He said I'd better be careful. All his carpentry knowledge is stored in there, and if I knock it loose, I can forget about those sliding cabinets. We got to town, and I took the 4 foremen to Wang's brick kilns for the handover. The old workers stayed, just the managers left. My guys can learn to handle everything. By noon I was ready for my next move, selling coal. I figured I'd approach Master Zhang, the rich literary gentleman who bought my recipes before. He's the only wealthy person I really know in town. First, though, I stopped at the same inn as my very first visit. This time I ordered a whole table full of food, same window seat, but a completely different vibe from when I was broke. Then I heard a familiar shout, "Waiter, bring wine." It was Zhou and Lu, the 2 warriors who taught me the bull strength technique a month ago. I called them over immediately. They didn't even recognize me at first. Last time I was skinny as a chicken. I booked a private room upstairs and ordered 10 jugs of strong liquor plus every signature dish. Zhou Taiyan and Lu Chundao. We finally exchanged proper names. I toasted them sincerely. Without them, I'd still be a nobody. They had great news. Both had broken through to the chi refining level. Zhou showed me. His blood-red bull totem actually merged into his body. They were preparing for a big competition in 2 weeks. Top 10 gets a position in the county. I asked if they could help me with business connections. They laughed and said they don't understand business, just drinking. So we drank. When we were about to leave, Lu got serious and pulled out a small booklet, his personal fighting technique, called Spring Thunder 3 Blades. He handed it to me as a gift, saying our meeting was fate. Zhou confirmed it's the real deal. Lu made the town's top 10 because of this technique. Then the 2 of them started arguing about who's stronger, jumped out the window, and ran off to spar somewhere private. Classic. My wife glanced at the booklet and lost interest instantly, too crude for her standards. She pointed out I use a spear, not a blade. I said I know, but it's the thought that counts. We pulled up to Master Zhang's mansion. I took a deep breath and got ready. Time to activate my ultimate technique, the art of grand bullshitting. At Zhang's mansion, they made us use the side entrance, which annoyed me a bit. I brought a bag of coal inside and sat down with the old man. He asked what I wanted. Last time I sold him recipes, so he was curious. I showed him the coal and asked for a fire basin. When I tossed the coal in and pulled out the wood, the coal kept burning on its own. His eyes went wide. Now here's where my grand bullshitting technique kicked in. I told him with a completely straight face that this is called coal, and it's extremely popular among the elite literary circles in the imperial capital. Very rare, very expensive. I said I got it through special connections, same connections that let me take over all the brick kilns in town. I only have 100 gene, and he's the first person I came to. Then I laid it on thick. Master Zhang, your family has generations of scholars, the finest reputation in town. This fuel is used by the cultured elite of the capital. Frankly, nobody else in this town deserves to use it. Only you. He tried to stay serious, but his mouth was twitching into a smile. Then he, humbly, mentioned that his son works in the county, not the town like everyone else's kids. Not worth mentioning, he said, while clearly bragging. These literary types love their false modesty. He offered to buy 50 gene. Too stingy. So I switched tactics, stopped talking about price entirely, and started painting pictures. I told him to imagine winter. Everyone else burning smoky firewood. But when his guests visit, he lights clean, smokeless coal. Smaller, cleaner, classier. And if he buys all 100 gene, he'll be the only person in town who has it. When others run out or can't find any, only he'll still have some. Think about what that means. That did it. Literary men live and die by face. He said he'd take all 100 gene, pay 30% above my cost, and made one condition. All future coal goes exclusively to him. I smiled and said, of course. He's the only person I'd ever sell to. He's the man I admire most. My wife glanced at me while I had my head bowed in fake humility. I winked at her. She rolled her eyes. Then I named my price. I told Zhang with a completely exaggerated expression that this coal cost me 50 taels for 100 gene. He did the math. 500 when per gene versus 30 for firewood. Expensive, but he didn't even flinch. He waved his hand and said he'd pay 65 taels total, adding 30% on top as promised. Just like that. I acted stunned. You're really going to pay? He said he never takes advantage of people and told me to bring more whenever I can. I bowed and promised he'd always be my first and only customer. Meanwhile, the actual cost of mining this coal is basically nothing. My wife rolled her eyes the whole time. We burn coal at home ourselves, and here I am telling this guy only refined gentlemen like him deserve it. Zhang's daughter, Zhang Yuqing, wandered into the hall. This was the third time she'd seen me. First time I was a skeleton, second time I looked better, and now apparently I looked good enough to make her blush. My wife noticed. Her eyebrows tightened, and she got that cold look. After we left with 65 taels in hand, I bragged to my wife about flipping the price. She said flatly, yes, you're very impressive. You didn't even notice that girl's eyes. She was ready to marry you on the spot. I leaned in grinning. Are you jealous? She said she didn't eat any vinegar today. She literally thought I meant the condiment. When she finally figured out what eating vinegar means as slang, she glared at me. I was already talking to Su Mu and missed it completely. I told Su Mu to deliver the coal tomorrow and to keep his mouth shut about where it really comes from. My plan is to train some of the Black Horse guys to look presentable and hit up every wealthy family in town at 500 won per gene. Pure profit. Then we passed the old carpentry shop. Su Mu got quiet. I asked if he wanted to take it back right now. I'd go in with him. He thought about it and said no. He wants to earn it back himself with his own skill. I told him I believe in him. He said he believes in himself too. I called him out for not being humble. He just laughed. We shopped for snacks and clothes. For Su Mu, for Oldly, for my wife. Then I spotted two restaurants across the street from each other. One packed, one empty. I pulled my wife into the empty one. That's the one I want to buy. What I didn't know was that Zhou Muxue was eating at the busy restaurant across the street. She spotted me through the window and immediately rushed downstairs to come, coincidentally, run into me. I walked into the empty restaurant and the waiter perked up immediately. Probably hadn't seen a customer in a while. I asked to see the owner. A chubby young guy named Wang Hai came down. I introduced myself straight away. Told him I'm business partners with Wang Rahai the brick dealer and friends with Jean the scholar. He could check if he wanted. He loosened up and told me his story. His cooks got poached by the restaurant across the street, and his family back in Wuling City wants him to come home and take over the family business, the Wang Trading Company. Turns out this guy is basically a rich kid who left home to prove himself, failed at every business from the city level down to the county, and now he's failing at the town level too. I held back my thoughts. In my old world, we'd call him a classic trust fund failure. But I was nice about it. I even suggested maybe his family was sabotaging him on purpose to make him come home. His eyes lit up. That's exactly what I think. I told him directly that I wanted to rent or buy his restaurant. He said he'd paid 6,000 taels for the building and wasn't ready to sell. Wanted to try finding new cooks first. He didn't want to go home with his tail between his legs. I respected that and told him to find me at Mountain Valley Village if he changes his mind. As we were leaving, I heard my name. Zhou Muxue again, with Zheng Qiao and armed guards. She said, what a coincidence, but there was nothing coincidental about it. I said, not a coincidence, in a cold voice, then switched to warm. Wife, let's go. I grabbed my wife's hand and walked right past them. Zhou Muxue chased after us crying, saying she'd even be willing to become my concubine. I knew what that really meant. Get close, then scheme to push my wife out. Maybe even poison. I've seen enough drama to recognize that playbook. I said one word. Crazy. Zheng Qiao blocked our path, demanding to know what's wrong with her friend. I looked at her, then slowly raised my hand, the one holding my wife's, and lifted it right in front of Zheng Qiaoqiao's face. I held up my hand, the one holding my wife's, right in front of Zheng Qiaoqiao's face, and asked what she saw. She said, "Your hand and your wife's hand." I nodded and said, "Exactly. I already have a wife. Why would I chase another woman? Have they ever considered how my wife feels?" I told her to imagine she was married, and some woman kept throwing herself at her husband, even offering to be his concubine. What would she do? Without thinking, she blurted out, "I'd castrate him and break that woman's legs." Then she realized what she'd just said and covered her mouth. I smiled and told her, "One flower, one leaf, one pursuit. One life, one world, one pair. I will never have anything to do with any woman besides my wife. No concubines. Ever." My wife's lips curved up slightly as I pulled her onto the ox cart. Zhou Muxue grabbed my shirt hem, crying prettily, begging me to just look at her. She was dressed to kill. She knew exactly what she was doing. I turned around, looked her dead in the eyes, and said, "My eyes are already full of my wife. Get lost." I yanked my shirt free and drove off. Even the mother cow got in on it. As she passed Zhou Muxue, she stopped, let out a blast of gas right in her face, then trotted off looking proud. "That's my cow." What I didn't know was what happened after we left. Zhou Muxue told Zheng Qiaoqiao she's pregnant with my child. Total lie. She claimed that night she stayed over. Something happened between us. In reality, she slept outside by the firewood pile because I wouldn't let her in. She's about as pregnant as a brick wall. But Qiaoqiao bought it completely and swore to help her. Zhou Muxue is terrifyingly manipulative. She'd spent months building Qiaoqiao's trust, and now she was cashing in. On the ride home, I analyzed Wang Hai's restaurant situation out loud. The competition across the street poached his cooks and probably bought off his staff too. He's losing money on spoiled ingredients every day with no customers. I give him 2 weeks before he sells. I did the math. He paid 6,000 taels, so a desperate sale might be 3,000. I don't have that yet. But with coal at 500 won per gene and 5 brick kills, each producing 20,000 bricks per week, half a month might just be enough. Small potatoes. Not worried. Su Mu, my reliable hype man, chimed in. "If Yi Ji says it'll work, it'll definitely work." My wife ate her apple in silence. Business talk bores her. I did the math and realized I can't afford the restaurant without selling coal fast. I need to get the Black Horse guys mining harder and train some of them to be salesmen, covering all 3 neighboring towns within 2 weeks. When we got back to the village, Old Brick's family was waiting outside my gate. His wife brought a hen as a thank you gift. I refused it. The man's leg is badly burned, their house is gone, and their son is working at my kiln now. They need that chicken more than I do. Old Brick insisted, so I threatened to fire his son as foreman if they didn't take it back. That finally worked. I'm not a saint. I help people when it makes sense, but I'm a businessman at heart. I protect my interests first, then decide who deserves my help based on loyalty and the situation. Giving away money for nothing just makes people expect more, and the day you stop giving, they turn on you. I bought Oldley new clothes. He put them over his face and fell asleep. Infuriating. Inside, I complained to my wife about Oldley's drinking. Then she casually dropped a bomb. Oldley is a warrior too. I was stunned. That feeble old drunk is a warrior? I asked if his cultivation is higher than mine. She held her hand up, pointed at my feet, and said his level is about that high compared to me. I smiled. Only up to my feet? I must be pretty strong then. She shook her head. No, I mean your level only reaches his feet. My smile froze. So he's way stronger than me. I asked if he's stronger than her. She just smiled and said she doesn't know. I ran outside and ripped the clothes off Old Lee's face. Stop pretending to be dead. You're a powerful warrior, and you've been lying around drinking while I do everything? Teach me kung fu right now. Old Lee opened his eyes, grinning, and asked what kind I wanted to learn. One-on-one fighting, 1 versus 100, or army versus army tactics. Meanwhile, my wife watched from inside, amused. She thought about telling me she's actually stronger than anyone on this entire continent, by an incomprehensible margin, but decided against it. If I knew how powerful she is, I'd get lazy. She wants me to develop my own fighting spirit and climb to the top through my own effort. That's the only way to reach the level of a heavenly emperor. I asked Old Lee if he could teach me a technique to fight 1,000 people at once. He rolled his eyes and said he's only at the chi refining level, barely stronger than me. Of course, he was lying about that, but I didn't know it at the time. He said he'd teach me hand-to-hand combat since I already use a spear. Warned me it would be tough. I said bring it on. 15 minutes later, he dragged me into one of the spare brick rooms, locked the door, and released a bag full of mosquitoes. Then he showed me. Without even looking, his hand flicked out with a tiny wooden needle and skewered a whole row of mosquitoes in one motion. He handed me the needle, said, "Good luck," and locked me inside for an hour. The mosquitoes immediately swarmed me. I couldn't hit a single one. They were just tiny black dots buzzing around. After an hour of getting eaten alive, I came out covered in bites with exactly one mosquito on my needle. Oldley said I was a natural for getting one so fast. I sat by the pond in silence, used my blood energy to heal the bites, then charged back in for more. I completely forgot about meeting the Black Horse guys about coal sales. That night, I slept great except for random twitching, mosquito trauma. Next morning, I went up the mountain to check on mining. The three bosses were in closed-door cultivation trying to break through, so the coal sales plan had to wait. I told their guys to send them to me when they're done. Coming down the mountain with De Huang's usual haul of rabbits and chickens, I spotted something in the grass that made me stop dead. It was zulahong, snow vegetable, what we called spicy greens back home. A huge wild patch of it, growing way bigger than in my old world. I got so excited I ran home, grabbed a basket and hoe, and ran back. I carefully dug up the mature plants to transplant in my yard for seeds and cut the young tender ones. I'm going to salt them in a jar for about a week, chop them up, rub with salt, seal them in a crock. After a week, rinse them off and stir-fry with chili flakes and sesame oil. The taste is incredible. My mouth was watering just thinking about it. I spent half the day getting them planted and prepared. My wife came over curious. She's been getting more interested in food lately. Pregnancy cravings are really kicking in. I told her this stuff needs a week to pickle, but it'll be amazing. What I couldn't see was her little fairy companion, Yu Tiandao, sneaking a bite of the raw leaf, immediately spitting it out, and complaining it was disgusting. My wife told her through their mental link that it needs to be pickled first. Obviously, I had no idea any of this happened. That tiny fairy is completely invisible to me. 3 days passed, and it's now November. The house renovations are completely done thanks to Sumu. Oldley got his new lounge chair and was so happy he offered to teach Sumu martial arts. Sumu agreed, and now he's hanging from the scaffold screaming just like I did. Welcome to the club. My mosquito training paid off. I killed every single one in that room. Now my reflexes are sharp enough to flick a sunflower seed shell and hit a flying mosquito midair. I sat on the third-floor pavilion with my wife, eating snacks and enjoying the river view. I asked her why her belly hasn't grown at all after a month and a half of pregnancy. She rolled her eyes and said she's a Dao master. She can control her body shape. Right, forgot about that. Then I spotted 3 black horses racing toward the village. The Black Horse brothers were finally out of closed-door cultivation. All 3 had broken through to the chi refining level. I congratulated them and handed over their 30% cut from the coal, 19.5 taels. Then things got serious. Yu Mianhu formally asked me again to become the leader of Black Horse Fortress. I refused as usual. I just want a quiet life with my wife and kid. But Lu Yunbao asked me to hear them out first. He explained the bigger picture. We're right on the border between the Xuanwu Empire and the Qingyan Empire, separated only by these mountains. Enemy scouts have already crossed over. By year's end, villages will be attacked. Their plan is ambitious. They have over 700 people total, 300 openly at the fortress, 400 hidden in society. 300 of their people are already inside the county military. The plan is to infiltrate all 4 counties, meet at Crow Mountain at year's end, pick a leader, then seize Wuling City from its useless young governor who spends all day with women while the army rots. I kept refusing. This is rebellion. People die doing this stuff. Then my wife came downstairs and said something that changed everything. The Qingyan Empire will attack eventually. We're right here on the border. Next year I'm giving birth. Are you going to make me and our newborn baby flee as refugees? That hit me like a hammer. My fists clenched. I imagined my wife and baby running from war with nowhere to go. I thought hard about the odds for a moment. Then my eyes went bloodshot. Fine. We do it. I refuse to believe this many people can't beat one worthless city governor. But the moment we take Wooling City, we pull out. We're not getting tangled up in anything bigger. Oldley watched silently. I could tell he was thinking something, but he just sighed. Later I'd learn he thought I was still too naive for real power struggles. And in his experience, the fastest way to make someone grow up is. The three brothers immediately bowed and called me leader. I told them to cut it out. We're still brothers in private. Then Yu Mianhu's face went serious again. I've learned to dread that look. He told me our coal mine has been spotted by a small cult called the White-Bone Sect, about 20 miles away. Their leader, Li Pingfeng, is a mid-stage qi-refining Dao master who practices evil arts, uses blood for cultivation. He'd been draining animals and monsters, but recently started kidnapping village children. His disciples found our mine and are probably planning to take it. I asked if they could beat a mid-stage Dao master. Lu Yunbao said 80% chance, especially with a surprise attack. He explained that below the Supreme Realm, warriors are the strongest in direct combat. Dao masters and Confucian cultivators fight with spiritual energy at range, but once a warrior gets close, it's a nightmare for them. I tried to act like a proper leader, furrowed my brows, spoke in a deep voice, asked for battle options. My wife watched from the side, trying not to laugh. Even Oldley was frowning at my lack of authority. Lu Yunbao gave me 3 choices: frontal assault, defensive wait, or nighttime surprise attack. Oldley clearly wanted me to pick the aggressive option, but I chose the night raid. Why lose lives in a head-on fight when we can minimize casualties with a sneak attack? They agreed and left to prepare. The moment they were gone, my tough leader act completely collapsed. I slumped into my chair and started internally screaming. I came here to live a quiet life. Why am I going to war? Where's my cheat code? Every transmigrator gets a golden finger. Where's mine? Thank God I read Romance of the Three Kingdoms and Water Margin. At least I know some strategies. I splashed water on my face to calm down, then walked up to my wife with a serious expression and held out my hand. Wife. Spear. She handed me the jade spear, smiling, and asked if I wanted her to come along. I told her no. We warriors are strong enough. She should stay home safe. She shrugged and went back to her sunflower seeds, knowing perfectly well she could watch the entire battle from here with her powers. Her little fairy companion whispered that I seemed better suited for business than fighting. My wife's face went ice cold. She blasted the fairy with a wave of destructive energy and sealed her inside the mirror dimension. Her voice echoed through that space like frozen death. He is my man. I spent the rest of the afternoon practicing spear forms in the yard, dead serious for once. Tonight, I go to war. Oldley came running out begging to come along. I told him no. He's limping, and we're going to fight, not sightsee. He got mad, and before anyone could react, he appeared in front of Yu Mianhu and punched him clean off his horse. Then he dusted off his hands and announced he's also a qi-refining warrior. Everyone just stared. Over 100 black horse fighters showed up in leather armor with weapons. Yu Mianhu brought me a black horse. I grabbed the jade spear, swung myself up, and felt my blood pumping. Every kid dreams of riding into battle like a hero. I gave the order to move out. We rode 20 miles through the mountains and stopped a few miles from the White-Bone Sect's base. It was only evening. We needed to wait until 2 or 3 in the morning when people are at their weakest. I sat on a boulder gripping my spear, and honestly, I was terrified. My face had gone pale, and I was drenched in sweat. This was my first time doing anything like this. Yu Mianhu sat down next to me and told me his story. He killed his first person at 9 years old. An orphan, starving. He'd finally caught a rabbit and was roasting it when a beggar kicked him down and took it. He played dead, grabbed a rock, and smashed the man's skull. Then he sat next to the body, finished cooking the rabbit, and ate it. He looked me in the eye and said, "If you want to protect your wife and child, it's not about how much money you have. It's about the spear in your hand." That hit me hard. I thought of my wife's face and took a deep breath. I told him I felt better. He warned me I'd definitely have to kill tonight. The White-Bone Sect are evil cultivators who use human blood for training. They won't hesitate. I asked him why they surrendered so easily when I first visited their fortress. His tough expression crumbled into embarrassment. He rubbed his nose and mumbled, "Your wife was too powerful. We couldn't beat her. Surrendering was the only option that wasn't suicide." I laughed and said once I reached the qi-refining level, I'll be the one protecting her. Oldley rolled his eyes behind me. He knows my wife is far beyond what I imagine, but he's keeping quiet to let me develop my own strength. Then one of our scouts dragged in a captured white-boned disciple, covered in blood with creepy red lines painted all over his body and face. They threw him at my feet. I straightened up on the boulder and said, "Bring him forward." The prisoner laughed wildly and said, "Go ahead and kill me. My master will avenge me." I handed the captured enemy over to Yu Mianhu to interrogate. He dragged the guy into the trees. One scream, then silence. Yu Mianhu came back, wiping blood off his hands. The prisoner had dared him to kill, so he did. Just like that. I tried eating my dry rations, but could only get half down. The blood made me nauseous. We waited until past 1 in the morning. Then I raised my spear and yelled, "Charge!" 100 horses thundered forward. He Mianxiong leaped off his horse mid-gallop and smashed the gate with his giant spiked hammer. Arrows took out the watchman. Our fighters poured in. Lu Yunbao vanished, doing his assassin thing. Everyone rushed inside. Except me. Somehow I ended up last. I couldn't control my horse properly. Then Old Li spotted 5 enemies escaping from the side. He shouted for me to chase them. But as we closed in, Old Li suddenly fell off his horse with a dramatic yelp, claiming his leg was hurt. The old fox was faking it. He wanted to force me into a real fight. The 5 enemies charged at Old Li to finish him off. I jumped off my horse and ran at them with my spear. My heart was pounding, palms drenched in sweat. Every technique my wife taught me vanished from my brain. They surrounded me. 5 against 1. I swung wildly, barely dodging a massive blade that almost took my head off. Pure chaos. No form, no strategy. Then something shifted. I accidentally stabbed one guy in the leg. When he came at me raging with his blade, I blocked it and felt my nerves settle. My blood energy surged. The jade spear glowed red. I swept all 5 weapons out of their hands. After that, instinct took over. I feinted with a sweep, then exploded forward with a thrust, the swallow flash technique, and pierced one man's heart. I pulled the spear out, spun, and cracked another's skull open like a watermelon. Then I slashed one across the throat, smashed another one flying with the shaft, and drove the spear but through the last one's chest after a knee-to-knee collision. The last man fell against me, blood pouring from his mouth, eyes staring into mine. I pushed him off, and he dropped face first into the dirt. I stood there shaking, staring at my blood-covered hands. I just killed people. Multiple people. I crouched down and held my spear, staring at nothing for a long time. Then I took a deep breath, stood up, walked over to the last wounded enemy still crawling on the ground, and drove my spear through his heart without blinking. I pulled Old Li onto his horse and told him to stay hidden. Then I mounted my own horse, gripped the reins, and charged straight into the burning White Bone sect compound. The firelight caught the blood on my face. I swung the jade spear in a wide arc that shattered a wooden wall, and my horse leaped through the gap into the chaos inside. Inside the White Bone sect compound, I watched He Mianxiong and Yu Mianhu battle the evil sect leader. The guy fought completely differently from warriors. Fire attacks, a flying blood-red sword, even explosive talismans. This was Dao master combat. Then Lu Yunbao appeared out of nowhere behind the sect leader, both daggers glowing, and drove them straight through his neck. The head flew off. It was over. But Lu Yunbao's skin was smoking from some corrosive blood technique the enemy had used. We rode home with over 100 horses, but more than 10 of those saddles were empty. We lost people tonight. When I got back, I scrubbed myself raw with ash and water, trying to get the blood off. Then I went upstairs, lay on the bed, and stared at the ceiling. My mind was a mess. I rolled over, looked at my wife sleeping with her back to me, and for the first time, I reached across the rope dividing our bed and put my arm around her. She stiffened but didn't say anything. I pressed my face near her neck and whispered, "I feel terrible. Just let me hold you for a bit." She stayed quiet. I fell asleep like that. Apparently, she gently moved me back to my side afterward so the dragon energy training could work properly. She even brushed the hair from my face and watched me for a while before sleeping. Morning came with De Huang's tongue on my face, as always. I looked over and my wife was on her side of the bed. Had I dreamed the whole thing? I went downstairs and immediately bragged to Su Mu about killing 5 warriors by myself last night. He ran off to verify with Old Li. I stopped smiling. Old Li would tell him they were only 4th and 5th level, not 7th, or 8th like I said. Yu Mianhu brought 7 or 8 guys for my coal sales training. They were supposed to be the smallest, skinniest, and palest men in the fortress. They were all still huge, muscular, and tan. I sighed and worked with what I had. I spent the morning teaching them salesmanship, stuff from my old job. How to approach strangers, build interest, create desire. One important thing I told them: coal produces an odorless gas that can be dangerous in sealed rooms. But don't mention that on the first sale. Tell them on the second visit, after they're already hooked on how convenient coal is. If you lead with the danger, nobody buys. I also planned a village-wide feast for tomorrow. The whole village plus all the Black Horse guys. I'm going to need those villagers happy because my next project is leasing their farmland to grow sweet potatoes and start a noodle factory. War is coming, but I can't stop building my businesses. Money feeds armies. After sorting everything out, I went upstairs where my wife was drinking tea. I scratched my head, sat down across from her, and asked nervously, "Wife, did I hug you in my sleep last night?" My wife said I didn't hug her. Must have been a dream. I let it go and started bragging about how amazing I was in last night's battle. She listened quietly, saying, "Impressive," a few times, which made me grin like an idiot. Then she got serious. She said my business talent is real, but if the Qingyun Empire invades, everything I've built turns to dust. Business is useful, but real strength is what keeps you alive. I went quiet for a moment, then looked her in the eye and promised I'd train hard to protect her and the baby. She smiled and said she believes in me. But I told her I'm not giving up on business either. I have a vision. Someday, every trading company on this continent will carry the name Yi. Even if my martial arts talent is average, enough money can buy rare treasures and train loyal fighters. If fate won't give me a cheat code, I'll build my own with my brain. I spent 2 years in business in my old world and watched entire empires of commerce rise. I can replicate that here. Then I laughed at myself. Big talk means nothing without results. One bite of apple at a time. After lunch, I went to the village chief's house to ask about tables for tomorrow's feast. I'm planning to invite the entire village plus the Black Horse guys. 20 tables, all meat. Zhang Shu pulled me aside and warned me not to get too close to the Black Horse bandits. He said the waters are deep and they're killers. I appreciated his concern but told him not to worry. Those guys aren't as bad as people think. They took the yearly tribute but also protect the village. He reluctantly agreed to help with the tables and led me to a storage shed. The tables have been used for village events for decades, still solid after all these years. Zhang Shu got nostalgic, remembering sitting at these tables as a kid. Meanwhile, I heard De Huang howling outside. I turned and saw him sitting under the village's ancient tree like some kind of king, with every stray dog in the village arranged in a semicircle around him, howling back in response. Zhang Shu said De Huang does this every afternoon now, and half the village thought a wolf had moved in. I slapped my forehead in embarrassment. I'm the one who taught that stupid dog to howl, a woo, instead of barking normally. Now he's huge and can't unlearn it. Sometimes he howls, sometimes he barks. Total mess. I swore I'd fix this, but honestly, that dog is hopeless. I told Zhang Shu not to bother carrying the tables. I'd get my guys. They each grabbed 2 and got it done in one trip. When the village chief announced I was hosting a feast for the whole village, everyone came alive. A village woman offered her husband and his brothers as cooks. They handle every village event. Perfect, because I had no idea how I'd feed this many people. Then the donations started pouring in. Pickled vegetables, a meter-long pumpkin, squash, radishes, jars of preserved cabbage. Half my yard was buried in food within the hour. One kid even stole his dad's breeding rooster and brought it over. His father came chasing after him screaming. My wife tried to help outside, but I told her to go rest. She's pregnant. That's when the village chief's wife remembered, and suddenly a squad of aunties escorted her inside like royalty. They were amazed by the house interior and started teaching her how to knit baby clothes. My wife, the most powerful being on this continent, was genuinely interested, sitting there learning to work yarn with a bunch of village women. She was actually enjoying herself. I took the Black Horse guys up the mountain. 2 hours later, we came back with 2 bears and 3 wild boars, about 3,000 jin of meat total. Not enough. So we hit the river. Everyone was catching fish faster than I could blink. I couldn't catch a single one. De Huang pulled out a whole bucket of turtles. Then someone screamed, Fish King. A level 7 beast lurking in the deep water. Way too strong for me, so we called you Mianhu. He dove in with his sword and hauled out a fish 3 meters long and over a meter wide. The villagers' jaws hit the ground. We cooked through the night. No lamps, just bonfires. Wild meat is tough and needs hours of boiling. Nobody slept. Everyone helped, washing vegetables, cutting meat, hauling water. Not a single complaint, just smiles everywhere. By morning, kids were crowding around the massive iron woks drooling at the sizzling braised pork. I pushed a whole plate toward them. Stop staring and eat. Just don't burn yourselves. They called me Uncle Yi. I'm 24. Uncle. These brats. By 11, 20 tables were loaded down with meat. Almost no vegetables, just a few mixed into the meat dishes. Every seat was full. Kids stood around squirming, but nobody touched a thing. Village rule, the host speaks first. I took a bowl of wine, walked to the center, and kept it simple. New house is done. Brick business is selling. Everyone who works for me has money in their pockets now. I'll keep expanding and hiring. Next year I have a plan that'll let the whole village earn money together. But for now, everything I want to say is in this bowl. I raised it high and drank it down in one go. Everyone raised their bowls and drank. I yelled, eat. Take home whatever's left. And the feast exploded into life. My table had the people closest to me. My wife, Old Li, Su Mu, Zhang Shu, and the 3 Black Horse brothers. The men's tables were loud with drinking and bragging, mouths full of greasy meat. The women's tables had to feed the kids first, but nobody worried. 10 huge bowls of meat per table, more than anyone could finish. Then Zhou Tsuehua ruined it. She'd hidden big bowls under her clothes. Halfway through, she started dumping entire plates of meat into her containers. Her husband and son did the same. When someone yelled at her, she spat on the remaining dishes so nobody else would eat them, then grabbed her bowls and ran for home, saying she'd come back for more. I'd had enough. I patted Da Huang's neck and said, go. He shot over like a missile, barking and howling. He bit Li Dada's pant leg and yanked him down, causing a 3-person pileup. I walked over calmly and called to go. He came running with his brothers. I said 6 words, break their legs, burn their house. Dago hesitated for just a second, then grabbed sticks and chased them down. 3 screams echoed back from the village entrance. Some villagers looked away. Zhang Shu came over worried, asking if I was going to kill them. I shook my head, just breaking a leg to teach them a lesson. Then I turned and smiled at everyone. What are you all staring at? Drink up. Someone raised their bowl and said Zhou Tsuehua deserved it. The atmosphere came back to life. People are selfish. They're all thinking about the money I'm helping them earn. Nobody's going to defend Zhou Tsuehua. Dago's crew burned her house down. She cried and cursed, so they smacked her across the mouth with a stick. In 6 weeks, I've gone from the village punching bag to someone nobody dares cross. If I'd done this when I first arrived, people would have driven me out. But now, everyone says she had it coming. That's what power does. When you're weak, even the truth sounds like garbage. When you're strong, people will cup your farts in their hands and call them perfume. The feast lasted 3 hours. I told everyone to split the leftover meat and take it home. Not a single person mentioned what happened to Zhou Tsuehua's family. I never planned to kill them. That would be too easy. With broken legs and no house, nobody in the village will dare help them. Let them suffer slowly. That's worse than death. After cleanup, I stared at the mountain of vegetables villagers had donated. How long will it take to eat all this? I looked over at my wife. She was sitting in the living room, completely absorbed in knitting. The village aunties had taught her, and she was genuinely fascinated by it. The most powerful empress in existence, happily learning to make baby clothes with yarn. The weeks passed with me splitting time between spear practice, checking on the restaurant in town, and managing the brick business. Everything was running smoothly. Then one night in mid-November, something incredible happened while I slept. I had the strangest dream. I was back in my old world, and someone kept whispering about Tai Chu and Yin Huang in my ear. I couldn't make sense of it. When Da Huang licked me awake the next morning, I told him to lick my feet next time instead. He took one look at me and ran. My head felt foggy. I went downstairs, grabbed my wooden spear for morning practice, gave it a little shake, and it snapped in half. Weird. I tossed the pieces in the kitchen and started circulating my blood energy. That's when I realized everything had changed. My energy was at least 10 times stronger than before. My old 5-bull strength was gone. The cultivation pathways in my body had completely reorganized themselves. They were following the 9-dragon body refining technique now. I'd done it. The technique I couldn't even attempt without nearly killing myself had somehow completed while I was sleeping. My wife and Oldly were right. Sleeping really did work. The bad news: my cultivation level dropped back to blood condensation level 1. The good news: 1 dragon's worth of power equals 120,000 gene of force. That's insane. I sprinted upstairs and told my wife. She looked tired but smiled, then tossed me the jade spear and told me to try channeling all my energy into it. I ran to the yard, pumped my blood energy, and golden light erupted around my whole body. I'd never seen anything like it. My energy was visible now, glowing gold. I pushed it all into the spear. The jade turned brilliant white, and when I swung it, a white dragon phantom roared out and blasted a massive hole through my wooden fence wall, flying another dozen meters before fading. Oldly stumbled out of his room, looking genuinely shocked. Sumu came running over screaming about how amazing it was and begging to learn the technique. Oldly grabbed him by the ear and dragged him back to practice his own basics. From the balcony, my wife said calmly, "Remember to fix the fence." I went back upstairs, embarrassed. She looked at the spear in my hands and said, "Keep it. It's yours now. You can handle her." I grinned like an idiot. I'd been wanting this spear since the first time I held it. My wife watched me run downstairs with a little smile. Whatever happened to me last night, I could feel it. I was different now. Stronger. Ready for whatever comes next. After breakfast, I took my wife and Sumu to town on the ox cart. I figured Wang Hai's restaurant must be near collapse by now. We hit the market first. It was mid-November already, getting cold, so I dragged everyone into a clothing shop. I came out in a white robe with my hair down over my shoulders, finally living out my childhood martial arts hero fantasy. Sumu picked a blue-green outfit because green is the color of wood and I'm a carpenter. My wife reluctantly wore white for the first time. She looked incredible but felt awkward about it. Halfway to the restaurant, rain started falling. I told my wife to wait while I bought umbrellas, but when I turned around, she was already walking toward me through a narrow alley, white dress flowing, holding an oil paper umbrella in the drizzle. Everything around her blurred. My heart actually skipped. She walked up smiling and called me a daydreaming fool, then handed me 2 extra umbrellas. I gave both to Sumu and squeezed under hers. He stared at me. "I only need one." I grinned and said my wife and I would share. I stopped at a flower stall, picked a little pink flower, and gave it to her. She smiled. Sumu bought himself a green one, sniffed it, frowned, and muttered, "How is this fragrant?" then followed us. At the restaurant, the waiter said there wasn't a single customer. We went up to the 3rd floor where Wang Hai was drinking warm rice wine alone with a plate of peanuts. We drank and talked for a while. He laughed when I told him I'd been trying to fish and couldn't catch anything. He offered to go fishing with me sometime, said he's an expert. I told him it's a deal. After a few rounds, he put his bowl down and sighed. He's leaving in a couple days, going back to his family's business. He looked around the empty restaurant with sad eyes. I told him maybe going home isn't so bad. His family wants him to stand on their shoulders and take things even further. He grabbed his hair and groaned. "You think I don't want to go back?" "I just don't want to get married." I stared at him. He ran away from home to avoid an arranged marriage. Even in this world, they have pushy families trying to marry people off. Wang Hai finally told me why he ran away from home. His father arranged a marriage for him when he was a baby. The girl, Zhang Xinyue, grew up to be a late-stage chi-refining warrior who can punch through 1,000-gene boulders. Wang Hai is just a regular guy weighing 200-something gene. He's terrified she'd kill him with one slap. I glanced at my wife. She's also way stronger than me. She caught me looking and asked if I needed more splits training. I immediately said, "Wife, I was wrong." I tried telling Wang Hai that having a powerful wife is actually great. He wasn't having it. He jumped up screaming about canceling the engagement, saying childhood promises shouldn't count. That same day, he left. Just a bundle and an umbrella, with family bodyguards following behind. He wanted to give me the restaurant for free, but I refused. We signed a contract. I'll pay him 3,000 taels over 3 years. He left his address, East 3rd Street, Wooling City. After half a month of work, the restaurant was finally mine. I told Sumu to make a sign, Xinya Restaurant, combining my wife's surname and mine. Sumu asked why not. Yi Qian, instead. I smacked his head. Which one sounds better? Qinya, exactly. I pulled Zhang Eru in as head chef and manager, plus recruited several village men who cook well. They all signed contracts and headed to town the next day. That evening, my wife came over holding a tiny knitted sweater she'd made for the baby, looking so proud. I examined it, then gently pointed out that the sleeves were knitted shut, no holes for arms. She grabbed it, turned red, and walked away. I smiled watching her go. That sweater was awful, but the fact she made it meant everything. Wife affection progress, plus 10%. Total, 60%. Next day was sunny after the rain. I practiced spear forms in the yard. Meanwhile, things I didn't know about. The snake, who now insists on being called Qing Mei instead of Hei Mei, had successfully evolved into a flood dragon. Yesterday's rainstorm was actually caused by her transformation. She's now blue-green colored and keeps showing off to Yu Tiandao. But the little fairy stubbornly keeps calling her Blackie. De Huang organized a hunting competition in the mountains with the chickens and the snake. And Su Mu, washing his hands by the pond, noticed the snake for the first time. Thought she was just a pretty little green snake. He pulled out the blue flower he'd bought yesterday and offered it to her. Little green snake, want this flower? It's yours. What I didn't know was that De Huang led the whole pet squad into the deep mountains for a rabbit hunting competition. They ran so far they stumbled across a unicorn. A real one, white as snow with a glowing horn, drinking from a stream. De Huang marched right up and announced himself as the great general, king of village dogs, top pet of the richest man in Mountain Valley Village. The unicorn scoffed, bragging about being some legendary creature at the spirit platform realm. De Huang slapped it across the face so hard it flew through several trees. The unicorn couldn't believe it. That's my dog. Learned everything from watching me act tough. In town, I took down the old restaurant sign and spent the day setting up supply chains, organizing the kitchen, and teaching the village cooks my recipes. They picked it up fast. I had Su Mu make a sign, Qinya Restaurant, combining my wife's name and mine. The restaurant owner across the street came out, glanced over, and went back inside laughing. He figured he'd just steal my cooks like he did Wang Hai's. We'll see about that. I had my wife write out the menu card since her calligraphy is beautiful. Everything was ready for tomorrow's opening. What I didn't know was that after we left, Zhou Muxue and Zheng Qiaoqiao showed up. Qiaoqiao used her father's power as county magistrate to forcibly buy the restaurant across from mine. Didn't even pay, just promised money later. The owner couldn't refuse a government official's daughter. They renamed it Mukin Restaurant. This woman named her restaurant after herself and me combined. Disturbing. On the ride home in the sunset, my wife asked me to sing that song again, the one I'd sung weeks ago. I was embarrassed with Su Mu right behind us, but she wanted to hear it. I leaned close and started singing softly. Your smile is so beautiful, like an exploding flower. She pushed me away. Stop. That's wrong. I laughed, pulled her close, and sang it properly. Your smile is so beautiful, like flowers in spring. She blushed, relaxed, and rested her head on my shoulder. The autumn sunset stretched our shadows long across the forest path as the ox cart rolled slowly home. Wife affection progress, holding steady at 60%. But moments like these, they feel like 100. I came home to find a unicorn standing in my yard. Oldly said De Huang brought it back from the mountains. I touched its neck. The fur was unbelievably soft and white. When I reached for the horn, lightning crackled and wind swirled around it. Impressive. My wife walked over, and the unicorn instantly dropped to its knees. I laughed, pulled her up onto its back with me, and we took it for a ride. No saddle needed, smooth as silk. I named it Xiao Bai, Little White. What I didn't see was the drama that followed. Da Huang immediately established dominance, demanding the unicorn call him Big Brother Huang. The unicorn refused, calling him a little yellow mutt. Da Huang jumped down from the balcony and beat him up again. The chickens watched calmly. As Xiaohua pointed out, none of the boys can lay eggs, so who really matters here? The snake, Hei Mei, was thrilled. Da Huang's attention shifted to bullying the unicorn, giving her piece to train. Turns out she's the one who led Da Huang to the unicorn on purpose. Next day, I chose the ox cart over Xiao Bai for the trip to town. It carries more stuff. The unicorn looked heartbroken. Back at the yard, Xiaohua the chicken tricked the unicorn into trying Old Li's wine. One lick and the whole bowl vanished down its throat. The unicorn's eyes rolled back, lightning shot from its horn, and it collapsed sideways with its tongue hanging out. Old Li just shook his head and poured Da Huang another bowl. In town, we opened Qinya restaurant with a bang. I had the staff outside shouting promotions. Half price on opening day, VIP membership cards, weekly discounts. Nobody in this world has ever seen marketing like this. People heading to the restaurant across the street stopped and came over curious. I trained the waiters to call every customer Sir or Lord, regardless of status. I wrote creative dish names: Jade Emerald for garlic mushroom greens, Tyrant's Farewell for chicken and turtle stew. People were intrigued. The big innovation was the VIP system. You pay 10 taels up front and get a wooden card with a number on it. Every time you eat, the amount gets deducted from the card. No need to carry cash. My wife made it work using her spiritual energy. Tiny amounts of power form the numbers on the card, and a special device at the counter updates them. This was huge. If I can scale this system up, I could basically create this world's version of digital payments. The possibilities made my head spin. What I didn't know was that Zhou Muxue had Zheng Qiaoqiao use her magistrate father's authority to forcibly buy the restaurant across the street. They renamed it Mukin Restaurant, combining Zhou Muxue's and my name. She's competing directly against me now, using government power. This woman does not give up. The restaurant's opening day brought in over 100 customers, a huge success. The staff were thrilled because I'd tied their pay to performance. Days passed, and life got comfortable. My dinner table now had rice, pickled vegetables, fresh greens, braised rabbit, fish soup, a world away from the plain noodles and broth I used to eat. The backyard garden was producing plenty. I developed a new daily routine: 3 hours of fishing. I'd been at it for half a month without catching a single fish. The one time I thought I had a bite, I pulled up a rotten shoe. But I refused to quit. I had to prove I could do this. One afternoon, Zheng Qiaoqiao showed up alone at the river where I was fishing. She asked if I could ever accept Zhou Muxue. I said I'd already made myself clear. Then I started asking her questions instead. How did a county magistrate's daughter meet a small-town girl like Zhou Muxue? She said Muxue saved her from bandits a month ago. I asked her to think about that. A delicate town girl with a few servants somehow fought off real mountain bandits? Had she ever asked her father what bandits are actually like? I pointed out more holes. Rich girls don't wander around mountains. And after being attacked once, Muxue supposedly went right back out again? Pretty brave for a helpless maiden. I also told her I never let Zhou Muxue sleep in my house that night. My wife was already pregnant. Does she really think I'd bring another woman into our bed? Her voice got quieter and quieter. She's naive, not stupid. The pieces were starting to click. I also asked about her Mukin restaurant. She admitted they'd lost all their business to my place. She'd bought the restaurant on credit, promising to pay later, counting on profits that never came. Now she was terrified of telling her father. I told her Zhou Muxue put her up to all of it, buying the restaurant, poaching my cooks. She looked shaken. I said go home and think it over, then sent her away. I went back to staring at the water. A fish actually swam toward my hook. I held my breath, watching it inch closer. YG, Yu Mianhu's shout made my hand jerk. The fish scattered. I cursed and looked up. His face was dead serious. A village has been massacred. No survivors. Yu Mianhu's news hit me hard. A village massacred 200 miles away, no survivors. The invaders from the Qingyan Empire did it. 200 miles is only a day's ride on horseback. Way too close. I told him to have the brothers stay alert. Send people to quietly check on nearby villages every day, but don't scare the villagers. New Year is coming, and this is the last thing we need. The worst part is there's nothing I can really do. These people move around, strike randomly, and disappear. They're in the dark while we're in the open. Days passed with no more bad news. But that made me more nervous, not less. If they're not showing up, it means we can't track their pattern. What I didn't know at the time was that a lot was happening elsewhere. Zheng Qiaoqiao finally went home and asked her father about bandits. He confirmed exactly what I told her. Bandits are all warriors, and regular household servants don't stand a chance against them. The whole story Zhou Muxue told her was impossible. She was furious about being used. And the restaurant she'd bought on credit was bleeding money. For 1,000 taels, she couldn't pay back. She was terrified of her father finding out. As for Zhou Muxue, She'd figured out that Xiao Qiao would eventually talk. So she packed up her entire family overnight and fled toward the capital of the Xuanwu Empire. She had some plan based on her memories of a future she'd supposedly lived before, a future where I apparently had no wife and would eventually become the ninth prince. But fate had other plans. On the road, her family's caravan ran into a group of Qingyun Empire raiders, the same kind of people who massacred that village. Her family had no warriors. The men were slaughtered instantly. Zhou Muxue recognized the mark on their weapons, a green cloud pattern. She realized too late what was happening. She'd accounted for everything in her plans except the tiny chance of running into these invaders on an empty road. She didn't make it. If she hadn't been so obsessed with chasing me, she might never have left town. If she hadn't tricked Xiao Qiao into buying that restaurant, she wouldn't have needed to flee. One bad choice led to another, and in the end, she walked right into the path of the very war she'd been trying to exploit. I wouldn't learn about any of this until much later. Right now, all I knew was that dangerous people were out there, and I needed to protect my village, my family, and everything I'd built. I went to the restaurant with my wife to check the books. It was mid-December already, getting really cold. I decided to bring Zhang Eru's wife in to handle the accounting. Have her report to me once a week so I don't have to keep running back and forth. While I was going over the numbers, I heard horses outside. A whole squad of armored government soldiers rode up with 2 carriages. Out stepped a stern-looking middle-aged man, clearly someone important. Then Zheng Qiao climbed out of the second carriage with her head down. They went into the Mukin restaurant across the street. I told Eru that restaurant was probably done for. He was relieved. One less competitor. I went upstairs to drink warm wine with my wife. She asked about the accounts. I told her my plan to delegate, then wondered out loud how Wang Hai was doing, whether he'd married that warrior girl or managed to cancel the engagement. My wife told me to mind my own business. 3 months together had changed us. She'd become more talkative, even cracked jokes sometimes. The village aunties who kept coming over to teach her knitting and embroidery had loosened her up. She used to just sit silently reading or playing music. Now she actually chatted. I loved it. Then Eru ran upstairs wide-eyed. The county magistrate wants to see you. I said let him come in. We're honest people. But I stood up and went down anyway. No point being rude to a government official. He was standing at the door. I bowed politely and invited him in. He looked surprised. I wasn't groveling like most people would. Then he did something I never expected. He apologized. Said his daughter had been deceived by a schemer and caused me trouble. He was embarrassed. A career of fairness and integrity, and his own kid gets manipulated into harassing a local businessman. I told him not to worry. The real villain was too cunning, and his daughter was just naive. He looked at me carefully and asked if I was an educated man. I said I'd read a little. That seemed to make him happy. Dealing with a fellow scholar apparently made the whole situation less humiliating for him. As an apology gift, he gave me the Mukin restaurant across the street. Free. Just handed the deed over. Xiao Qiao brought me the box with the property documents, head down, face red with shame. I walked them out and looked at the deed in my hands, grinning. Both restaurants on the best street in town, both mine now. Then my brain started working. I'd just met the county magistrate, and he clearly values his reputation. If I can get him to use my coal and put his name behind it, I could sell to every town and county below him. One sentence from a government official, the magistrate uses this himself, would do more than 100 salesmen. Zhou Muxue had actually done me a huge favor without meaning to. Her scheming brought the magistrate's daughter into my life, which brought the magistrate himself to my door with an apology and a free building. Tomorrow I'm going to the county seat to talk to Xiao Qiao. If I can convince her, getting her father on board with the coal business should be easy. I had to be careful. Nobody can find out I'm the leader of Black Horse Fortress. If the county magistrate discovers that, I'm going to prison. My wife said to handle it however I see fit. Next morning, Oldley insisted on driving me to the county seat. He didn't trust me going alone to meet government people. The county was completely different from our town. Brick-paved streets, wider roads, nicer buildings, better-dressed people. We arrived around 11, so I decided to eat first and visit the magistrate in the afternoon. We found a fancy 5-story restaurant with a river view. Red lanterns hung everywhere for the coming new year. While eating, I overheard a group of scholars at the next table showing off poetry to each other. One guy called Brother Bai recited a poem about first snow. His friends went crazy praising him. I thought it was pretty mediocre compared to the poetry from my old world, but it wasn't my business. Then two drunk scholars started toasting each other so enthusiastically that one splashed wine on my clothes. I didn't care, it was just a little wine. But when they noticed, instead of apologizing, they saw I was a warrior and sneered. One said apologizing to a crude warrior would be beneath them. That crossed a line. I stood up and told them their poetry is nothing special and their manners are worse. They mocked me, said a warrior couldn't even read, let alone write poetry. I asked if they'd heard of Li Bai or Du Fu. Blank stares. Nobody in this world knows them. I said they were old friends of mine. Then I started reciting. Plum and Snowjingshin Waking Shag. The poet sets down his brush, unable to judge. The moment I spoke those words, the leader of their group, Brother Bai, snapped to attention. He shouted, "The saint commands, silence," and suddenly an invisible force locked everyone's throats shut, including mine. I couldn't speak, but my blood energy surged instinctively and broke through the restraint in a second. He looked at me surprised, guessing I was a late-stage chi-refining warrior. Actually, I'm only blood condensation level 2. My 9-dragon technique just makes my energy far denser than normal. I was fascinated. I'd never seen a scholar with actual cultivation powers before. I asked him how he did that. He looked confused. You don't know? The scholar's name was Han Bai. He explained that Confucian cultivators use word law. Whatever they say becomes reality. To demonstrate, he pointed at an empty spot and said, "The saint decrees. There shall be a wooden chair." A flash of white light, and a real chair appeared out of thin air. I touched it, solid wood. My jaw dropped. I asked if he could conjure gold. He laughed and said only a Confucian saint could do that, and it costs a huge amount of literary energy. I was so jealous I could scream. Imagine someone attacking you and you just say, "The saint decrees. You should be at the horizon," and poof, they're gone. Warriors have to sweat and bleed for everything. Scholars just talk and reality bends. No wonder they look down on us. I got excited and grabbed Han Bai's arm. I tried to set up an old joke from my world involving Lu Bu and Diao Chan, but he took everything literally and said he couldn't conjure a person. The joke died on arrival. He asked me to finish the poem I'd started. I recited the second half. The plum must yield to snow 3 parts in whiteness, yet snow falls short of plum by a fragrance. Han Bai went red in the face, realizing how mediocre his own poetry was compared to this. He bowed deeply and called me a great talent. Then his friends piled on with praise. "You're wasted as a warrior. If you had spiritual roots, you'd be a future Confucian saint." These scholars are professional flatterers. Every one of them. When I finally escaped, Han Bai even fixed my torn sleeve with a word law command. I was dying of envy. If I had that power, making money would be effortless. On the ox cart, my wife hit me with the question I'd been dreading. She'd overheard me asking about Diao Chan and wanted to know who that was. I squirmed, tried to explain it was a wordplay joke, then finally pointed at my lower body and explained what the punchline actually meant. She twisted the skin on my waist so hard I jumped off the cart screaming. She'd promised not to get angry. She just humphed and turned away, face red. Old Lee drove on, chuckling to himself. We arrived at the county magistrate's mansion. I told the guard I was Zheng Qiaoqiao's friend. She came out looking embarrassed and apologized again for everything. I told her it's fine, she was just deceived. Then I got to the point. I want to do business with your father. In the magistrate's study, I watched Zheng Hongyu practice calligraphy. He'd written a poem about integrity and righteousness. I praised it like my life depended on it. Told him the poem perfectly captured his spirit of justice and incorruptibility. He loved that. Then he handed me a brush and asked me to write a poem. I admitted I can read, but my handwriting is terrible, so I offered to recite while he writes. He agreed and laid out fresh paper. I asked his full name, Zheng Hongyu. Then I announced, "This poem is titled For Zheng Hongyu of Qingyuan County." He looked a little nervous, worried I'd produce something embarrassing he'd have to pretend to. I recited a poem from a Qing dynasty poet in my old world, slightly adapted. An official here through several springs, never shaming heaven, never failing the people. If the spirits of the road have eyes, they'll know. I leave as poor as the day I arrived. He wrote it down carelessly at first, not expecting much. Then he read it back. His eyes widened. He kept murmuring the lines, never failing the people. Leave as poor as I arrived. Suddenly, the whole room erupted with literary energy. A blue-green aura shot up from his head, growing over 10 centimeters tall. Brushes and furniture flew everywhere. He stood frozen like a statue, gripping his pen. A few breaths later, he snapped back, eyes glowing. He waved his hand. The saint decrees. Restore. Everything in the room flew back into place instantly. He turned to me with awe on his face. Nephew Yi, your poem just helped me break through to the body return realm. I was stunned. He'd been at the peak of the Yuan dance stage, and my poem pushed him over the edge, just like that. I've been training my body every single day, and I'm only at blood condensation level 2. This guy reads one poem and levels up. How is that fair? As thanks, he used his word law power to create a magical white robe for me. His face went pale from the effort. It cost him a lot of literary energy. He said it can block one attack from a Yuan Dan level cultivator. He actually apologized for it not being enough to match the value of my poem. I took the robe and had to physically stop myself from asking him to conjure up something else. The jealousy was killing me. Scholars get everything so easy. He insisted I call him Uncle Zheng from now on. Then he looked at his calligraphy of my poem and nearly cried. He'd written it so sloppily because he didn't think it would matter. Now it was infused with breakthrough energy and couldn't be rewritten. This was the only copy that carried power, and his handwriting was garbage on it. He framed it with a word law command anyway. I cleared my throat. Uncle Zheng, actually there's something else I wanted to discuss. Time to pitch the coal business. Uncle Zheng was so happy about the poem that when I brought up the coal business, he didn't even need a fire basin. He just spoke one into existence. Scholars, man. He said he can't do business as a government official, but he gave me something even better, permission to use his name. I can tell anyone I'm the county magistrate's nephew, and nobody will dare mess with me. As long as I don't hurt people or break laws, he won't interfere. That means all the coal profits stay with me. Even better than a partnership. He walked me out personally, calling me nephew in front of everyone. Oldly looked bothered. I think he feels a small-town magistrate isn't important enough to be calling me family, but he didn't say anything. Back at the magistrate's house, Chow Chow nervously asked her father if she could visit my wife. He said yes, but told her to call me Big Brother from now on and to bring proper gifts when visiting. She couldn't believe how fast her father warmed up to me. We loaded up the ox cart with county-level New Year goods, better quality than what the town sells. On the road home, a group of riders came toward us. The leader was a pretty boy in white robes with a sword on his back. He pulled up, blocked our cart, and stared straight at my wife. I'm Zhao Feiyu of the Zhao Dao family. May I ask the lady's name? Are you married? My blood boiled instantly. I told him she's my wife. He drew his sword and said, "Draw your weapon." I'm taking her. I cursed, grabbed the jade spear from my wife, and jumped off the cart. He attacked first, sword wrapped in green wind energy. I swung my spear and smacked his blade aside. The impact shocked him. He didn't expect that kind of power from someone who looks like a simple villager. He called his men to help. I didn't panic. Yu Mianhu taught me well. Warriors beat Dao masters by getting close. They can hit you 100 times, but if you survive and land 2 hits up close, they crumble. I drove my spear forward with a spinning thrust that nearly broke Zhao Feiyu's wrist. He dropped his sword, shot a fireball at me with hand seals, and backed off. I shattered the fireball with one swing, then spun around to sweep back his charging men. I pressed the attack, spears spinning in unpredictable circles, whipping through their formation. Every sword that touched my spear sent shockwaves through their arms. Some dropped their weapons entirely. They tried to scatter and cast spells from distance, but I closed the gap before they could finish. Anyone my spear caught went flying, coughing blood. The rotational force from each hit wrecked their insides. Oldly sat on the cart watching, nodding with a faint smile. He mumbled something about how killing really is the fastest way to grow. In just a few breaths, I knocked everyone down. Zhao Feiyu tried to sneak attack me from behind, but I blocked his sword without even looking. He started forming some spell with his hand, so I dropped my spear, spun around, and punched him with everything I had, 240,000 gene of force. His arm snapped like a twig, and he flew through the air like a rag doll. I kicked him on the ground. He was out cold. I shook my head. This guy wanted to steal my wife, and he's this weak? Then one of his men staggered up and screamed, "Do you know who this is?" He's the son of the Zhao family patriarch. Kill him, and we'll wipe out your entire family. That threat changed everything. I'm a modern person. I believe in live and let live. But wipe out your family means my wife, my unborn baby, everyone. I can't let that threat exist. I threw my spear through that man's heart. Then I stomped on Zhao Feiyu's chest, crushed his heart from inside, and watched him die. After that, I killed every last one of them. No witnesses, no future revenge. Back on the cart, I handed the spear to my wife and told old Li to drive fast. The bull ran faster than a horse. My wife asked if I was okay. I put on a brave face and bragged about how weak they were. Then I accidentally called Dao masters garbage, worse than scholars, and remembered my wife is a Dao master. That's when something clicked. Those Dao masters were pathetically weak against me, but my wife had made Yu Mianhu and his brothers surrender without lifting a finger. I asked her what level she really is. She smiled and said, "What if I'm not Chi refining stage, but spirit platform stage?" I stared at her. She admitted she never actually said she was Chi refining. I just assumed. She told me not to get cocky. My strength only works against average cultivators. Real experts won't be so easy. Point taken. Pride extinguished. Half an hour later, old Li said he needed a bathroom break and hobbled into the bushes. What I didn't know, and wouldn't learn until much later, was that old Li's whole body transformed the moment he was out of sight. He launched into the sky, flew back to the county in seconds, appeared above the Zhao family compound, and announced in a voice like rolling thunder, "Your young ones dared provoke me. They deserve death." Then he took one step in midair. A giant footprint appeared from the heavens and crushed the entire Zhao estate into a crater. Everyone inside gone. Dust to dust. He flew back, shrank down to his old man form, and limped back to the bushes. The county magistrate felt the earthquake, walked outside, saw the Zhao compound was just a hole in the ground, and decided not to investigate. He figured whoever did that was at the war god level. Picking a fight with a war god over one family? Not worth it. When old Li still hadn't come back after a while, I walked into the bushes to check on him, figuring he was constipated. I yelled, "I told you to stop drinking so much. Now look what happened." I had absolutely no idea what he'd just done. Old Li popped out of the bushes acting totally normal. I told him to cut back on the drinking. He just nodded and smiled. Over the next few weeks, everything fell into place. I had the Black Horse guys disguise themselves as merchants to sell coal in the county. The restaurant was running smoothly without me. I spent my mornings training. I'd reached blood condensation level 6 now, with 720,000 gene of force, and my afternoons fishing. Still hadn't caught a single fish. Not one. I could see them swimming right there, but none would bite. As New Year approached, Old Li got quieter. Sometimes he'd just drink all afternoon without saying a word. Then it was New Year's Eve. The village was decorated with lanterns and red everywhere. Snow was falling softly, covering everything in white. Most villagers had more money this year thanks to the brick kiln and restaurant jobs, so the celebrations felt bigger. De Huang had grown to 1.5 meters tall, almost 2 meters long. He looked impressive but still couldn't stop mixing howls with barks. My fault for teaching him wrong. I made a hot pot for our New Year's dinner. A fire basin in the middle of the table with a big pot on top. Everyone sat together. Me, my wife, Old Li, and Su Mu. Old Li took his bowl and shuffled to the doorway like always, squatting by the door frame to eat alone. I went over to pull him to the table. He refused, said servants don't eat with the master's family. It's the rule. I asked if I'm his young master. He said yes. So I ordered him. "Old Li, I'm commanding you to sit at this table and eat with us." He looked up at me, paused, then quietly said, "All right," and walked to the table. The little fairy on my wife's shoulder whispered to her that he'd shed a tear. We raised our bowls and toasted to a better year ahead. My wife drank tea instead of wine. I tried again to get Su Mu to drink alcohol. He refused as always, said he needs a clear head because he's a craftsman. Hopeless. I even set up a little table outside for the animals. De Huang sat under our table smugly. He gets to eat with the family. He kept taunting Xiao Bai through the door. The chickens ran around the snowy yard making footprints. Hei Mei sat by the pond, her tail wrapped around that little blue-green flower Su Mu gave her, gazing at the moon. After dinner, I told my wife I'd be home late. Tonight was the night. The 4 rebel fortresses were meeting at Crow Mountain to choose a leader and plan the takeover of Wuling City. She offered to come. I said no. The strongest enemies should be late-stage chi refining at most, and with my 6 dragon power, I should be able to handle it. She nodded, then handed me the white robe Uncle Zheng had made for me, the one that can block an attack from a Yuan Dan level cultivator. I put it on. White robes, long hair, snow falling around me. I finally looked like the martial arts hero I dreamed of being as a kid. I grabbed the jade spear and whistled. Xiaobai galloped over, eyes blazing with excitement. I looked back at my wife one more time and smiled. Wait for me. I leaped onto Xiaobai's back. He reared up, shot a smug look at De Huang, took 2 running steps, and jumped clear over the 2-meter yard wall. Outside, over 100 black horse warriors stood in formation, fully armed, waiting in the falling snow. Tonight we ride to Crow Mountain. Through the snowy night, I rode Xiaobai at the front. White robes, white horse, jade spear in hand, with 100 black-armored riders thundering behind me. We were heading to Crow Mountain, a peak 6,000 zhang high that someone had sliced flat with a sword 100 years ago, creating a giant circular platform at the top. 4 rebel fortresses were converging from 4 directions tonight. Black Horse Fortress led by me. Dayan Fortress led by a woman called Red Thread Snake. Songyu Fortress led by a silent madman named Song Jiulong. And Dongpu Fortress led by a golden-haired giant named Deng Shi. At the base of the mountain, I left our 100 men behind and rode up with Yu Mianhu and the brothers. Xiao Bai's horn crackled with lightning, clearing the path through the snow. 3 people were already sitting around a stone table at the summit when I arrived. I drove my spear into the ground and sat on the empty cushion without a word. A pot of wine warmed over a fire between us. Deng Shi said we were late. I looked at him and said, "You have a problem with that?" He stared back and said no. Smart man. Red Thread Snake was dressed in thin clothes despite the freezing cold, fanning herself with a purple iron fan. She called Yu Mianhu a coward for letting a blood condensation level 6 warrior be his boss, then offered to make me her captured husband at her fortress. I told her I'm married. She sighed and said, "Boring." Song Jiulong barely spoke, just said warriors settle things with fists. The 4 of us locked eyes across the fire. Then everyone's blood energy exploded at once. I punched at Deng Shi. He countered with spiked gauntlets. We clashed and both slid backward. I pulled my spear and launched over the stone table at him, bringing a shower of snow down. We traded dozens of blows. He was strong enough to sink half a foot into solid rock and still look comfortable. Then Red Thread Snake broke away from fighting Song Jiulong and swung her fan at my neck. The blade split snowflakes in half without disrupting their shape. Precise and deadly. I bent backward and stabbed at her heart. She dodged, laughing, calling me names I won't repeat. Fighting her was completely different from Deng Shi. She moved like an actual snake, impossibly flexible. Her iron fan blocked everything. When I pressed her with the spear's reach advantage, she got desperate, grew her fingernails into purple glowing claws a foot long, and slithered right up to my side. I blocked her claws with my spear shaft and jumped back, only to hear Song Jiulong behind me. Blood condensation level 6 lasting this long? Let me try you. I spun to face him. He came at me with twin-hook sickles, spinning them like windmills. I swept one aside, leaped up trailing snow, twisted the spear midair, and thrust down at him with everything I had. The rules of this fight were simple. Every strike could kill, but if you survive and switch opponents, nobody cheap shots you from behind. It's a test, a deadly one, but still a test. I was holding my own against 3 mid-stage chi-refining warriors while only at blood condensation 6. The 9-dragon technique really is something else. Song Jiulong's hook sickles flew at me, but the spinning force on my spear knocked them away. He dropped the hooks, grew fangs and blood-red claws from his fists, looked like Wolverine from the movies. He lunged at my throat so fast I almost didn't react. In that split second, something erupted inside me. Golden blood energy exploded from my body, and my speed shot through the roof. I barely dodged his claws. Everyone froze. Warrior blood energy is always red. Nobody had ever seen gold. They didn't know it, being so far from the capital, but golden blood energy is the mark of the Xuanwu imperial bloodline. Mine was even purer than normal royalty, pure, brilliant gold. The jade spear, transformed too, became crystal clear, glowing with flowing light. I charged at Song Jiulong and smashed his blood claws to pieces with one swing. Stone and snow exploded everywhere. Yu Mianhu's jaw dropped. He realized I'd been holding back every time we sparred. He's mid-stage chi refining, and I'm only blood condensation 6, and I'd been going easy on him. Red Thread Snake and Deng Shi teamed up against me. I fought all three simultaneously, golden dragons of energy swirling around me. Then instinct took over. I let out a thunderous roar, and 9 golden dragon phantoms burst from my body and crashed into all 3 of them. They were shocked. Blood energy taking physical form at blood condensation level? Unheard of. Red Thread Snake and Song Jiulong backed off, but Deng Shi went berserk. His golden hair grew down to his waist, his eyes turned red gold, and his power surged near the spirit platform level. He'd lost his mind, but his fighting instincts were razor sharp. We clashed head-on. Neither could overpower the other, but the impact sent him sliding toward the cliff edge. He went over. I didn't hesitate. I jumped after him, threw him back up onto the platform, then drove my spear into the mountainside to stop my own fall. The spear bent like a bow, and I launched myself back up. Song Jiulong caught me with his hook and pulled me to safety. I thanked him. He said nothing, just walked to the table and started pouring wine. Red Thread Snake kept flirting. I kept saying I have a wife. She kept saying, boring. Deng Shi recovered from his frenzy, walked over, and punched me in the chest grinning. Finally landed one on you. I punched him back. He threw his arm around my shoulders. He's over 2 meters tall, so it looked ridiculous, and we walked to the table together. He asked how a blood condensation 6 warrior could be this strong, and what's with the golden energy. I shrugged and said, can't help it. I was born to be a warrior. We raised our cups in the falling snow and drank together. 7 people, 4 fortress leaders, and 3 brothers, united under the winter sky. Then Deng Shi grudgingly called me Big Brother Yi. I called him Little Brother Deng. His face went completely dark. Red Thread Snake laughed. Song Jiulong, dead serious as always, immediately called Deng Shi second brother. Red Thread Snake rolled her eyes at him. Boring man, standing on that mountaintop in the snow, drinking with these crazy warriors. I felt something shift inside me. I'm not just a businessman playing at war anymore. I belong here too. After the drinks, we spread out a map of Wuling City on the stone table and started planning. What I didn't know was that far away in the imperial capital, something was happening because of me. The Xuanwu Empire has a place called the Heavenly Observatory, an 18-story tower run by the Grand Observer, an ancient Taoist immortal named Lu Wuji. His job is monitoring the stars, overseeing the imperial family, and keeping order. He carries a stone sword that can execute corrupt emperors or treacherous ministers. The moment I'd released my 9 golden dragons earlier that night, he sensed it. He studied the star charts and realized the 9th prince, me, apparently, is still alive. Everyone thought the 3rd prince had killed me off years ago. He summoned a man named Chun Xuantian from underground imprisonment, a wild, foul-mouthed swordsman at the Soul Return mid-stage who'd been locked up for 6 months because he went overboard on a mission and wiped out 3 barbarian cities when he was only supposed to guard a border. The Grand Observer sent him to Wuling City to find me. Chun Xuantian flew off on his sword, immediately started bragging about visiting pleasure houses, and got smashed back into the ground by a sword beam from the tower. The old man warned him, mess around again, and it's 3 years in the dark. Back on Crow Mountain, I raised a concern. Deng Shi is our strongest fighter at late-stage chi refining, but the county magistrate Zheng Hongyu is a body return realm Confucian cultivator. The power gap is huge. How could this plan work? Red Thread Snake laughed and explained, Confucian cultivators have to speak to use their powers. Poison their throat so they can't talk, and even someone below Confucian saint level becomes basically a normal person. Physical body, weak as paper. I shut that down immediately. Zheng Hongyu is a good official. I won't let them kill him. Deng Shi said sacrificing a few good men to save a whole city should be considered an honor. I stayed quiet, thinking. Then I said something that shocked them all. Have you considered just working with the local officials instead of against them? Deng Shi looked at me like I was crazy. He said scholars despise warriors. They'd never cooperate. They'd walk away and insult us on the way out. I told them I actually have a good relationship with Zheng Hongyu. Maybe I could talk to him. and he could reach out to the other 3 county magistrates. If we partner up, we wouldn't be labeled as bandits anymore. Deng Shi slammed his chest and said he refuses to fight alongside those strutting peacocks. Real men have muscles, not fancy robes. Red Thread Snake winked at him. Little brother too is absolutely right. I sighed. The mutual hatred between warriors and scholars in this world runs impossibly deep. This was going to be harder than I thought. I tried to talk them out of their kill everyone approach. I said let me try diplomacy first. If it doesn't work, we can fall back on their plan. Deng Shi shrugged and said I'm the boss since he can't beat me. We raised our cups one final time. To the Heaven and Earth Alliance. That's what I named our union, inspired by old rebellion stories from my world. No more 4 separate fortresses. From now on, we're one force. I rode Xiao Bai down the mountain through the snow, said goodbye to Yu Mianhu and the brothers, and got home around 1 or 2 in the morning. I washed up, went upstairs, and found my wife seemingly asleep. The room was freezing. I crawled into my cold bed and pumped blood energy to warm it up. Then I noticed her hands were outside her blanket. I reached over and gently took her hand. She murmured softly and opened her eyes. I smiled and said, "Put your hands inside. Don't let them freeze." I tucked one hand in, then leaned over to get the other. The position felt close. She started to turn away, but I held her wrist gently and whispered, "Wife, let's sleep together tonight." 4.5 months we'd shared this bed with a rope down the middle. We know each other so well now that a single glance says everything. She didn't answer. She just rolled over quietly. I smiled, pulled the rope off the bed and threw it on the floor. Then I lifted her blanket and slid in next to her. We both went stiff as boards. My heart was hammering. After a while, I awkwardly put my arm around her and slid my other arm under her head. "Go to sleep," she said, very quietly. "Going to sleep right now?" I said, grinning in the dark. She smelled incredible. Wife progress, plus 10%. Total, 70%. Next morning, De Huang crawled out from under the bed, looked up at my empty side, then spotted me holding my wife, and his dog eyes nearly popped out. He bolted downstairs and ran to the cow shed to announce the news to everyone. The master and the mistress slept together. The cow's eyes went round. Xiao Hong the chicken tried to start clucking in celebration, but Xiao Hua smacked her with a wing and lectured her. "Humans don't lay eggs. They have babies. Don't embarrass us." I woke up with a numb arm. My wife was curled against me, eyelashes fluttering. She was awake, but pretending not to be. I smiled, carefully pulled my arm free, patted the blanket so she'd sleep more, and went downstairs. After I left, she pulled the covers over her face. In all her centuries of existence, she'd never been this close to anyone. Outside, the snow had stopped. I grabbed a shovel and started clearing paths. Sumu joined in. Then I practiced spear forms while Old Li watched from his doorway. But today his face wasn't his usual lazy grin. He looked dead serious. "Sumu," he said quietly, "spar with your Yi. I want to watch." Old Li told Sumu to spar with me using the crescent blade he'd been teaching him. Sumu had actually reached mid-stage chi refining under Old Li's training. Higher than me technically, though my dragon power made up the difference. We fought a few rounds, and I knocked his blade out of his hands. Old Li walked over and punched Sumu through a wall. The kid coughed blood. Old Li said coldly, "Your weapon is your life. Even if you die, you don't drop it. On a battlefield facing thousands, what will you fight with?" I told Old Li that was too harsh. "Sumu works hard every day and doesn't deserve that." Old Li looked at me with something like approval in his eyes. Then he said, "Young master, forgive me." Before I could react, he swung the blade at me. He was only using blood condensation 6th-level strength, less than half of mine, but I barely dodged. My protective robe from Uncle Zheng flashed with light, saving me. Then he came at me relentlessly with one hand. I blocked, counterattacked, threw everything I had. Golden blood energy fully unleashed, spear speed increased by 1/3. Nothing worked. Every attack I made, he deflected, redirected, or turned my own force against me. Meanwhile, his blade kept finding openings, hitting my robe again and again. If I didn't have that magic robe, I'd have been cut a dozen times. He kept striking me while lecturing. "Too slow. You never push your speed to the limit during practice. You beat a few bandits and think you're invincible? A real expert would kill you with one strike." One final slash sent me flying through the yard wall into the snow. The protective robe shattered. Fine cuts appeared on my skin. He'd controlled his power perfectly. Enough to hurt, not enough to truly wound. I crawled out of the snow, feeling humiliated. I thought I was strong. He used half my power and completely dominated me. He threw the blade to Sumu and told me to follow him inside. He closed all the doors and windows. Then he said something that changed everything. "Young master, where is your dragon pendant?" I touched my chest, still there. He asked if I remembered when he first came and mentioned my family background. I joked that maybe my family needs money. He shook his head slowly. "What I'm about to tell you is about who you really are." I straightened up. I'd always suspected something. Old Lee is incredibly powerful, but serves as my servant. The person I replaced in this world must have come from somewhere important. Some powerful family, probably torn apart by internal politics, like in every drama I'd ever watched. Whatever he was about to say, I was ready to hear it. Because in this world, I am that person now. His identity is my identity. There's no going back. Old Lee finally told me the truth about who I am. My mother in this world was named Duanmu Qingyun, from a family so powerful they had an entire city named after them, Duanmu City. Old Lee watched her grow up. He's 75 years old. She was a genius, achieved the unity of 3 realms at 18, became a Taoist immortal overnight. The emperor of the Xuanwu Empire personally chose her as his consort. 10,000 miles of red cloth lined the roads, and 1,000 snow dragon horses escorted her to the palace. The entire nation celebrated for 3 months with music, lights, and a 3-year tax exemption. The next year she got pregnant. The year after that, she gave birth to the 9th prince. That's me. I'm the 9th prince of the Xuanwu Empire. But my 3rd brother, Yi Yunfei, the most talented and most ruthless of all 8 princes above me, framed my mother right after I was born. Somehow, he turned our father against her. He sent soldiers into her quarters. She told Old Lee to take baby me and run. We've been hiding ever since. The 3rd prince couldn't find us, so he wiped out the entire Duanmu family. Over 10,000 people dead. I'm the last drop of blood from that line. And Old Lee is just an old dog clinging to life to protect me. Now our father the emperor is dying. A few months at most. If the 3rd prince takes the throne, he'll hunt me down and finish the job. I sat there stunned. I'm not just some village nobody. I'm royalty. This might be my real golden finger, hidden all along. But it also means the heaven and earth alliance I just formed. I'd basically be rebelling against my own empire. After processing everything, I clenched my fists. My mother was murdered. My family was slaughtered. That debt has to be paid. But I told Old Lee I'm not ready to go back. If I show up now, the 3rd prince will crush me. Better to build up strength in secret. Build high walls, store deep grain, take the crown slowly. Old Lee agreed. I went upstairs and told my wife. She wasn't surprised at all. Said palace politics always involve brothers killing brothers when they have different mothers. She sees this as another chance to toughen me up and won't interfere unless I'm truly about to die. I took a deep breath and looked out at the frozen river. It's just the 3rd prince. I don't believe I can outplay him. We're both princes. Same status. So it comes down to who's smarter, who builds better alliances, who understands people better. In that game, I'm very confident. What I didn't sense was that my wife noticed something stirring inside me. A flicker of what she called Nian, a type of willpower that, if strong enough, could attract the primordial force of Tai Chu and become an unimaginably powerful technique. She'd only achieved this once herself, creating her ultimate ability, the thought of annihilation. One thought, and everything dies. She decided right then, she won't save me unless I'm truly about to die. The harder I'm pushed, the stronger I'll become. While I was up on the pavilion thinking about how to build my strength and connections, a white horse came trotting through the snow. It was Han Bai, the scholar I'd met at the restaurant in the county. He'd fled a New Year's poetry gathering because too many women were chasing him. He rode all night without even going home. I invited him in. He immediately noticed Xiao by the unicorn and got excited. De Huang was not happy about being ignored. He ran over and started howling for attention. I introduced him as my dog, a genuine mutt. Don't let the howling fool you. The chickens heard Han by complimenting the pets and started clucking from their shed, wanting attention too. After tea, I asked if he wanted to go fishing. He said he enjoys it, finds it good for thinking. We grabbed rods and headed to the frozen river. Han Bai started saying, "The saint decrees." to break the ice, but before he could finish, I punched a huge hole through it with my fist. He stared at me and said, Never mind. Within an hour, Hanbai had caught a bucket full of fish. I caught 0. Again. Months of fishing and not a single fish. I made up an excuse. The fish here are hospitable. They know you're a guest, so they're biting your hook first. I normally catch tons. Hanbai actually believed me and nodded politely. Back home, I cooked lunch, then brought Hanbai up to the third-floor pavilion. We heated wine over charcoal, ate peanuts, and watched the snow fall while talking. Then he told me something interesting. He's been accepted to take the entrance exam for the Literary Saint Academy, the most prestigious school for Confucian scholars. He's the only student in all of Wuling City who qualified this year. If he gets in, he could become a city governor at minimum when he graduates. My brain immediately started calculating. This guy is a goldmine. He's charismatic, well-connected, and heading to the most elite school in the empire. If I pull him into my circle now, every friend he makes at that academy becomes part of my network too. I raised my cup and said, Brother Han, today over peanuts and warm wine, why don't we become sworn brothers? He looked surprised but pleased. I've decided on my new strategy. Going forward, every time I meet someone with potential, I'll walk right up and say, we're clearly destined to be friends. Let's swear brotherhood. Hanbai agreed to become sworn brothers. We drank to it. Then I decided to send him off with a poem since he's heading to the Literary Saint Academy soon. I recited one of the great classics from my old world. 1,000 miles of yellow clouds dim the white sun. The north wind drives the geese through falling snow. Don't worry about the road ahead having no friends. Who in this world won't know your name? It hit Hanbai like lightning. The kid had been carrying enormous pressure. 10 years of studying. The weight of being the only student from Wuling City to qualify for the academy. Nobody knew how stressed he was. My poem unlocked something inside him. His literary energy erupted, shot through 3 sublevels, and he broke through an entire major realm, from Spirit Platform to Yuan Dan. White light swirled around him. He'd gained what they call vast righteous energy, something only Yuan Dan level scholars possess. He bowed deeply and thanked me. I told him it was his own talent, not my poem. He immediately wrote the date and occasion on the paper and framed the whole thing. Probably going to be a family heirloom. Around 4 o'clock, he was about to leave when Yu Mianhu and 100 armed riders came thundering up. Hanbai saw the armor with the character 4, righteousness, on their chests and immediately tensed up. He knew they were bandits. He stepped in front of me and started channeling a word law attack to protect me. I slapped my hand over his mouth before he could finish. Relax, they're on our side. His brain short-circuited. His newly sworn big brother is a bandit leader? He, a proper Confucian scholar, just became brothers with the head of a mountain fortress? I introduced Yu Mianhu and the others as upstanding businessmen who occasionally deal with bandits threatening mountain villages. Hanbai slowly accepted this version of reality. Then Yu Mianhu got serious. They'd found tracks from the Qingyun Empire infiltrators, heading toward Dachin village, about 30 miles away. Hanbai was furious when I explained what was happening. He wanted to come along. I grabbed the jade spear, told my wife I was heading out, and whistled for Xiaobai. My wife didn't even look up from her knitting, just said to be careful. De Huang tried to follow us, but my wife made him slip and fall. She'd forbidden him from showing his real strength around me. The poor dog slunk back to the doorway and lay down looking depressed. Dog life, lonely as the snow. We reached Dachin village to find blood everywhere. Survivors were kneeling in the snow with archers behind them. The leader fired arrows at us as we approached. Hanbai saved us. He started shouting word law commands. Arrows should fly upward, and every arrow curved into the sky, missing the villagers. Then he buffed our side. Weapons sharper, speed faster, strength greater, and debuffed the enemy. Their weapons weaker, their speed slower. Their toenails should hurt. He collapsed on his horse afterward, completely drained, but the boost made a real difference. I charged straight at their leader, a spirit platform level warrior. Way above me. The first exchange told me everything. My full power strike barely made him step back, while his casual swing sent me flying. This wasn't like fighting those weak down masters on the road. This was a real warrior, and the gap was enormous. He recognized my golden blood energy. He knew what it meant, imperial bloodline. He'd been sent by the Qingyun Empire with orders. He wanted me dead. I tried everything. Frontal attacks, the 9 dragon energy burst, feints, and misdirection. Nothing worked. Every hit I landed, he shrugged off. Every hit he landed sent me crashing through buildings. Yu Mianhu and the brothers were tied up fighting the others. Hanbai was spent. After getting smashed through a wooden house, I lay there completely drained. Blood energy nearly gone. Body failing. Then I heard that ancient voice again, the same one from my dreams, Yin Huang. Taichu. His blade came swinging down at me. I thought of my wife waiting at home. I couldn't die here. Up in the clouds, my wife was watching. She'd been ready to kill the man with one finger. But then something happened. A flicker of Taichu energy appeared on my body, and she held back. I dodged at the last instant. A massive 5-clawed golden dragon phantom materialized behind me. The jade spear in my hands transformed. Pure gold from grip to tip. Power I'd never felt before flooded through my body, stronger than my peak. I swung with everything. The leader blocked confidently. Then his face twisted in shock as my strike forced him back several steps. For the first time, he looked at me with real fear. A blood condensation 6 warrior matching a spirit platform fighter blow for blow. My eyes turned red gold with flames rising from them. An overwhelming imperial pressure radiated outward, piercing through the clouds. Then an ancient, weary voice echoed in my mind. Boy, watch carefully. My will. You only get to see it once. I couldn't control my body. I could only watch, like a cut scene in a video game. I floated up, held the spear with one hand, and swung once. Thousands of golden dragons roared out, and 9 massive golden spear phantoms crashed down from the sky. The enemy leader had nowhere to run. Everything around him exploded. Every remaining enemy was swept away. An ancient voice echoed in my head. This is the bloodline technique. Wrath of the true dragon. Then it faded. I'll be waiting for you. At the end of Taichu, I dropped to the ground. Everything went back to normal. Everyone was staring at me with their mouths hanging open. The crater where the enemy leader had stood was enormous, big enough to flatten a mountain. Yu Mianhu stammered asking what just happened. I shrugged. Can't help it. Born warrior, Su Mu, reliable as always, immediately backed me up. I managed to hold on to a trace of the overwhelming pressure that attack left behind. When I let it leak out, Yu Mianhu and the others turned pale. I pulled it back. Good to know I can use that. The village was devastated. Half the people were dead. I left some silver, but there was nothing else I could do. We lost over 30 of our own fighters too. The ride home was quiet. Hanbai was completely drained. Yu Mianhu accidentally slapped him on the shoulder and nearly knocked him off his horse. He Mianxiong put his arm around Hanbai and promised to hammer anyone who ever bullies him. Hanbai sat squished between 2 massive warriors, shaking. He whispered to himself that I'm the only normal person in this group. I brought Hanbai home to stay the night since he had no energy left. I put him in the spare room, the one full of dead mosquitoes from my training. He looked around confused, then used a word law command to make the mosquito corpses disappear. Sumu was quiet too. It was his first time killing someone. I told him to rest. After washing up, I went to bed. My wife was already there. I slid in next to her. The bed was already warm. 2 people sharing a bed is so much better. Yu Tiandao saw us and fled into the mirror. Smart fairy. I pulled my wife close. She didn't resist. I gently turned her to face me. My right arm under her head, left arm around her waist. My heart was hammering so hard I thought she could hear it. She was close enough that I could feel her breath. Being face to face felt completely different from back to back. She said softly, "Sleep." I stared at her face in the dim light, struggling to find words. After what felt like forever, I stammered, "Wife. Can I have a kiss?" My wife grabbed the soft spot on my waist. I immediately surrendered. "Sleeping? I'm sleeping." I didn't dare move a muscle. She kept her arm draped over me though, and we fell asleep like that. Next morning, De Huang looked depressed coming downstairs. He'd seen us sleeping together again and felt his position as top pet was threatened. He saw Xiao by showing off to the chickens, and something snapped. He bolted out the gate and up the mountain on a mission to prove himself. He came back with a bunch of fat rabbits dangling from his mouth. I rubbed his head and told him he's a good boy. He shot Xiao by a smug look. Rivalry is alive and well. During morning practice, I changed my approach. Instead of just swinging hard, I focused on speed, pushing every strike to its absolute fastest. I realized that's what I'd been missing. Without mastering speed, I'll never develop true spear intent. After breakfast, I told Hanbai we should ride to the county together. I needed to report the Qingyun invasion to Uncle Zheng. This has to go up the chain to the empire before things get worse. I rode Xiao by this time instead of the ox cart, with my wife sitting in front of me. I asked Xiao Bai to hide his horn since it's too conspicuous. Hanbai started explaining that only soul return level beasts can shapeshift, then watched the horn vanish, replaced by a tuft of blue-green hair. He choked on his words. Another thing about me that doesn't make sense to him. At the magistrate's mansion, the guards lit up when they saw me. Hanbai was shocked. He'd expected a Confucian official to look down on a warrior, but they treated me like family. I told him, learn to talk to people, build relationships. When you get to the Literary Sane Academy, befriend every talented student and swear brotherhood. Even if your career stalls, one friend who rises can pull you up. He nodded seriously and said he'd remember that. Uncle Zheng came out personally to greet us. My wife went off with Qiao Qiao to look at plum blossoms. She'd rather do that than listen to politics. In the study, I pulled out the enemy leader's sword with the Qingyun Empire's cloud emblem carved into the handle. Uncle Zheng's face went dark. When I told him they'd massacred half of Dachin village yesterday, he was horrified. This happened in his county, and he hadn't even known. Uncle Zheng slammed his fist on the table, furious that half a village was massacred in his own county without him knowing. He demanded to know how I found out about the Qingyun Empire's invasion plans. I told him we'd captured one of their people a while back and got the information through interrogation. He was still skeptical, but agreed this was too serious to ignore. He pulled out a jade token and contacted the other 3 county magistrates instantly, like a magical phone call. That jade token blew my mind. It works just like a mobile phone from my old world. My brain immediately started racing. If everyone could have one of these, I could build this world's version of an online marketplace. Set up a centralized trading network. Introduce virtual currency that can be exchanged at branch offices for gold or silver. Charge transaction fees. Build a delivery system. Call it 9 Provinces Commerce, with the slogan 9 Provinces Delivery, 7 days guaranteed. If I become a prince with real influence, or even take the throne, I could implement this across the entire empire. And if the 3rd prince is my enemy, forget martial arts. I'll bury him in money. Hire the best fighters, buy the rarest treasures, fund an army. Money makes the world go round. I calm myself down. Can't do any of this yet, but I filed every detail away for later. Uncle Zheng gave me my own Jade communication token. It works with warrior blood energy, range of 100 miles. I asked if there's a longer range version. He said yes, but extremely expensive. Noted. On the way out, we bumped into Zhou and Lu, the 2 warriors who first taught me the bull strength technique months ago. They're working for the county now as investigators, already at mid-stage chi refining. Their cultivation speed is incredible. We sat down for drinks, and I congratulated them on their careers. They're aiming for Wuling City next. While riding through the county with my wife, I spotted that fancy riverside restaurant again. I made a mental note. Once I have enough money, I'm buying that place too. The location is pure gold.